దూరదర్శన వార్తలకు స్వాగతం. నేను సరిత. కరోనాను నియంత్రించేందుకు ప్రతి ఒక్కరూ మాస్క్ను తప్పనిసరిగా ధరించాలి. ముక్కు నోరు కప్పి ఉంచేలా సరైన పద్ధతిలో మాస్క్ను ధరించాలి. తరచూ చేతులను శుభ్రం చేసుకోవాలి. వ్యక్తిగత పరిశుభ్రతను పాటిస్తూ భౌతిక దూరాన్ని తప్పక పాటించాలి. అర్హులందరూ వ్యాక్సిన్ వేయించుకోవాలి. నిబంధనలు పాటిద్దాం, కరోనాను జయిద్దాం. ఇక ఈనాటి వార్తల్లోని ముఖ్యాంశాలు. రాష్ట్రంలో ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికలకు ఈ సాయంత్రంతో ముగిసిన ప్రచార గడువు. ఎల్లుండి పోలింగ్. ఉదయం 8 గంటల నుంచి సాయంత్రం 4 గంటల వరకు పోలింగ్. 16న ఓట్ల లెక్కింపు. ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికలకు అన్ని ఏర్పాట్లు పూర్తి చేశామన్న అనంతపురం జిల్లా కలెక్టర్ ఎస్ నాగలక్ష్మి. ఎలాంటి అవాంఛనీయ ఘటనలకు తావు లేకుండా పటిష్టమైన భద్రతా చర్యలు చేపట్టామని వెల్లడి. శ్రీకాళహస్తిలో ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికల ఏర్పాట్లను పరిశీలించిన తిరుపతి జిల్లా జాయింట్ కలెక్టర్ బాలాజీ. నకిలీ ఓటర్ల నమోదుపై ఎన్నికల కమిషన్కు నివేదిక పంపామని వెల్లడి. వార్తలను వివరాలు. రాష్ట్ర వ్యాప్తంగా ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికల ప్రచార గడువు ఈ సాయంత్రంతో ముగిసింది. ఎల్లుండి ఉదయం 8 గంటల నుండి సాయంత్రం 4 గంటల వరకు పోలింగ్ నిర్వహిస్తారు. 16వ తేదీన ఓట్ల లెక్కింపు చేపడతారు. 3 పట్టభద్రులు, 2 ఉపాధ్యాయ ఎమ్మెల్సీ స్థానాలకు ఎన్నికలు జరగనున్నాయి. ఇందుకోసం అధికారులు ఇప్పటికే ఏర్పాట్లను పూర్తి చేశారు. అనంతపురం జిల్లాలో ప్రశాంత వాతావరణంలో ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికలు నిర్వహించేందుకు అన్ని ఏర్పాట్లు పూర్తి చేసినట్లు జిల్లా కలెక్టర్ నాగలక్ష్మి తెలిపారు. ఎల్లుండి జరిగే పోలింగుకు జిల్లాలో పట్టభద్రులకు సంబంధించి 49 మంది, ఉపాధ్యాయులకు సంబంధించి 33 మంది అభ్యర్థులు పోటీ చేస్తున్నారన్నారు. వైఎస్ఆర్ జిల్లా, కర్నూలు, అనంతపురం జిల్లాల్లో మొత్తం 383 పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్లు ఏర్పాటు చేశామని తెలిపారు. ఎలాంటి అవాంఛనీయ ఘటనలకు తావు లేకుండా పటిష్టమైన భద్రతా చర్యలు చేపట్టామన్నారు.
మనకి ముఖ్యంగా ఓటర్స్ ఈసారి అర్థం చేసుకోవాల్సింది ఏంటంటే, యూజువల్లీ మనము ఓటింగ్ పద్ధతి రెగ్యులర్ ఎలక్షన్స్లో ఏంటంటే ఎమ్మెల్యే ఎలక్షన్స్లో, ఎంపీ ఎలక్షన్స్లో ఫస్ట్ పాస్ ద పోస్ట్ అంటాం, అంటే ఎవరో ఒకరికి గుర్తేయాలి అంతే. బట్ ఇప్పుడు ఉండేది ఏంటంటే ఈ మెథడ్ పేరు ప్రొపోర్షనల్ రిప్రజెంటేషన్ బై సింగిల్ ట్రాన్స్ఫరబుల్ ఓట్. అంటే మీరు ప్రిఫరెన్స్ ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు. బేసిక్లీ ఎవరో ఒకరికి ఫస్ట్ ఇచ్చుకొని ఎవరికో సెకండ్, ఎవరికో థర్డ్, ఎంతమంది ఉన్నారో అంతమందికి ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు. అంటే సీట్ ఒకటైనప్పటికీ ప్రిఫరెన్స్ ఎంతమంది క్యాండిడేట్స్ ఉన్నారో అంతమంది వరకు ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు. సో ఈసారి మెథడాలజీ, ఓటింగ్ మెథడాలజీ మనకి ప్రిఫరెన్షియల్ మెథడాలజీ. సో ఓటర్స్కి దీనికి సంబంధించి వ్యాలిడ్ ఓటుగా ఏం లెక్క అవుతుంది, ఇన్వాలిడ్ ఓటుగా ఏం లెక్క అవుతుంది అనేది ఆల్రెడీ మనం డిఫరెంట్ ఇక్కడ జిల్లా స్థాయిలో ఒకసారి ఎంప్లాయీస్కి వీళ్ళకి ట్రైనింగ్ ఇవ్వడం జరిగింది.
స్థానిక సంస్థల ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికల ఓటింగ్పై అవగాహన కల్పించేందుకు అన్ని రాజకీయ పార్టీలు తమ వంతు కృషి చేయాలని శ్రీకాకుళం జిల్లా జాయింట్ కలెక్టర్ ఎం నవీన్ కోరారు. స్థానిక సంస్థల ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికల నిర్వహణపై పలు రాజకీయ పార్టీల ప్రతినిధులతో ఈ రోజు సమీక్షించారు. ఈ సందర్భంగా ఆయన మాట్లాడుతూ ఓటర్లు తమ హక్కును విజయవంతంగా వినియోగించే దిశగా రాజకీయ పార్టీల ప్రతినిధులకు అవగాహన కల్పించాలని కోరారు.
మొత్తం మనకి సీఈఓ ఆఫీస్ నుంచి 1000 బ్యాలెట్ పేపర్లు రావడం జరిగింది. దాన్ని సీరియల్ వారీగా మనము చెక్ చేయడం జరిగింది. ఒక 81 బ్యాలెట్ పేపర్స్ మనకి ఇష్యూ వచ్చింది. సో దాన్ని పక్కన పెట్టి మిగిలినవన్నీ ఈక్వల్గా డిస్ట్రిబ్యూట్ చేయడం జరిగింది. డిస్ట్రిబ్యూట్ చేయగా స్పాయిల్డ్ పేపర్స్ పక్కన పెడితే కూడా 118 మనకు రిజర్వ్లో ఉన్నాయి. అవి ఈచ్ అండ్ ఎవ్రీ జోనల్ ఆఫీసర్కి కూడా మనకు సరిపడా రిజర్వ్ ఎంతైతే 10 to 20% అనేది ఉంది, దానికంటే మించి కూడా మనము జోనల్ ఆఫీసర్స్ దగ్గర పెట్టున్నాము. సో యాజ్ ఫార్ యాజ్ పాసిబుల్ బ్యాలెట్ పేపర్ సంబంధించి మనకు ఎటువంటి ఇష్యూ లేకుండా ఉంది. అలాగే ఇంకా మిగిలిన ఇతరత్ర పోలింగ్ మెటీరియల్ అంతా, బ్యాలెట్ బాక్సెస్ కానివ్వండి, లేకపోతే స్టాచ్యురీ కవర్స్ అవనివ్వండి, స్టేషనరీ మెటీరియల్ కానివ్వండి, ఇతరత్ర ఫామ్స్ అన్నీ కూడా ఆల్రెడీ సెగ్రిగేట్ చేసి బ్యాలెట్ బాక్స్ అయితే ఒకసారి మనం వెరిఫై చేసుకొని కూడా మనం పెట్టుకోవడం జరిగింది డిపిఆర్సీలో. అది 12వ తారీఖు రేపు మార్నింగ్ మనము అన్ని పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్కి డిస్పాచ్ చేయడం జరుగుతుంది. అలాగే పోలింగ్ పర్సనల్ అనేది పిఓస్, ఏపీఓస్, ఓపీఓస్, కౌంటింగ్ ఏజెంట్స్, కౌంటింగ్ సూపర్వైజర్స్, కౌంటింగ్ అసిస్టెంట్స్ అందరూ కూడా మనము ఆల్రెడీ అపాయింట్ చేసి ట్రైనింగ్స్ కూడా ఇవ్వడం జరిగింది.
స్థానిక సంస్థల ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికలకు సంబంధించి కర్నూలు జిల్లాలో అన్ని ఏర్పాట్లు పూర్తి చేశామని జిల్లా కలెక్టర్ పి కోటేశ్వరరావు తెలిపారు. పశ్చిమ రాయలసీమ పట్టభద్రుల ఉపాధ్యాయుల ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికలతో పాటు ఉమ్మడి కర్నూలు జిల్లా స్థానిక సంస్థల ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికలు ఎల్లుండి జరగనున్నాయి. జిల్లాలో 107 పోలింగ్ కేంద్రాలను ఏర్పాటు చేసినట్లు తెలిపారు. జిల్లాలో పట్టభద్రుల ఓటర్లు 61,633 మంది, ఉపాధ్యాయ ఓటర్లు 5,391 మంది, స్థానిక సంస్థల ఓటర్లు 1,178 మంది తమ ఓటు హక్కును వినియోగించుకోనున్నారు.
మొత్తము 61,633 మంది ఓటర్లు ఉన్నారు మన దగ్గర. అదేవిధంగా టీచర్స్ కాన్స్టిట్యున్సీకి 27 పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్స్ మనం ఏర్పాటు చేసుకోవడం జరిగింది. దానికి గాను 5,391 ఓటర్లు ఉన్నారు. అదేవిధంగా లోకల్ అథారిటీస్కి సంబంధించి 6 పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్స్, అంటే మనము 6 ఆర్డీఓ డివిజనల్ హెడ్ క్వార్టర్స్లో వీటిని పెట్టుకోవడం జరిగింది. లోకల్ అథారిటీస్కు కర్నూలు అంటే ఎస్ట్వైల్ కర్నూలు నంద్యాలకు కలిపి ఈ 6 చోట్ల 6 డివిజన్లో మనము ఈ పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్స్ ఏర్పాటు చేసుకోవడం జరిగింది. దానికి గాను 1,178 మంది ఓటర్లు ఉన్నారు. తర్వాత మనము ఈ అన్నిటికీ పోలింగ్ స్టాఫ్ని వాళ్ళన్నిటినీ మనం ఏర్పాటు చేసుకోవడం జరిగింది. దానికి సంబంధించి ఆల్రెడీ ఆదేశాలు కూడా ఇచ్చాము. జోనల్ ఆఫీసర్ మనము 16 రూట్స్ని ఐడెంటిఫై చేసుకున్నాం. 16 రూట్లలో పోలింగ్ పర్సనల్ వెళ్తారు, వారితో పాటు పోలింగ్ మెటీరియల్ వెళ్తుంది. అది పోలింగ్ అయిన తర్వాత సీల్డ్ బాక్సులు కూడా తిరిగి అదే రూట్లో రావడం జరుగుతుంది.
ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికల్లో బోగస్ ఓటర్లు, దొంగ ఓట్లు వేస్తున్నారన్న పలు పార్టీల ఫిర్యాదులపై ఎన్నికల కమిషన్కు నివేదిక పంపామని తిరుపతి జిల్లా జాయింట్ కలెక్టర్ బాలాజీ స్పష్టం చేశారు. శ్రీకాళహస్తిలోని స్కిట్ కళాశాలలో ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికలకు సంబంధించి పోలింగ్ కేంద్రాల్లో ఏర్పాట్లను ఈ రోజు ఆయన పరిశీలించారు. ఎన్నికల విధుల్లో పాల్గొంటున్న సిబ్బందితో సమావేశమై పలు సూచనలు చేశారు. ఎన్నికలు తుది దశకు చేరుకున్న తరుణంలో ఎలాంటి ఇబ్బందులు తలెత్తకుండా జాగ్రత్త పడాలని సిబ్బందిని జాయింట్ కలెక్టర్ ఆదేశించారు.
12వ తేదీ డిస్ట్రిబ్యూషన్ ఉంటుంది కనుక శ్రీకాళహస్తి ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ ఆఫ్ టెక్నాలజీలో కాళహస్తి రెవెన్యూ డివిజన్కి సంబంధించిండే అన్ని పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్స్కి కూడాను పోలింగ్ పార్టీస్ని ఇక్కడ పిలిపించి వాళ్ళందరినీ పార్టీ చేస్తూ మళ్ళీ అక్కడ మెటీరియల్ అంతా వాళ్ళకి డిస్ట్రిబ్యూట్ చేస్తూ పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్స్కి రేపే పంపించడం జరుగుతుంది. సో ఎల్లుండి అంటే 13వ తేదీ మార్నింగ్ 8 గంటల నుంచి సాయంత్రం 4 గంటల వరకు కూడాను పోలింగ్ ప్రక్రియ జరగబోతుంది. సో దీనికి సంబంధించి అన్ని సజావుగా జరగాలి, ఎక్కడ కూడాను లా అండ్ ఆర్డర్ ఇష్యూస్ రాకూడదు అనే ఉద్దేశంతో చాలా పకడ్బందీగా ప్రణాళిక సిద్ధం చేసుకుంటూ దాన్ని పకడ్బందీగా అమలు చేసుకుంటూ ఎక్కడ కూడా ఏమీ సంఘటనలు జరగకుండా చూసుకునేదానికి అన్ని సంసిద్ధంగా ఉన్నాం.
విజయనగరం జిల్లాలో ఎల్లుండి నిర్వహించనున్న ఉత్తరాంధ్ర పట్టభద్రుల శాసనమండలి ఎన్నికలకు అన్ని ఏర్పాట్లు చేసినట్లు జిల్లా ఎస్పీ దీపికా ఎం పాటిల్ తెలిపారు. ఎన్నికలు సజావుగా స్వేచ్ఛాయుత వాతావరణంలో జరిగేలా పటిష్టమైన భద్రతా ఏర్పాట్లు చేశామని, స్వేచ్ఛగా ఓటర్లు వారి ఓటు హక్కును వినియోగించుకోవచ్చని కోరారు.
సో మొత్తం ఈ బందోబస్తులో 1200 పర్సనల్ ని డిప్లాయ్ చేస్తాం జరుగుతుంది. దీంతో పాటు మనకి ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ స్పెషల్ పోలీస్ వాళ్ళది ఒక ప్లటూన్ కూడా వచ్చింది. ఈ ప్లటూన్ ని మనం బ్యాలెట్ బాక్సెస్ ఎస్కార్ట్ చేస్తానికి తీసుకొస్తానికి వాడతాము. ఇంకా ఎవ్రీ పోలింగ్ లొకేషన్ లో ఒక సబ్ ఇన్స్పెక్టర్ ఇన్ఛార్జ్ గా ఉంటారు. మొత్తం 13 రూట్స్ ఉన్నాయి. ఈ 13 రూట్స్ లో కూడా ఇన్స్పెక్టర్స్ ఇంకా డిఎస్పీస్ ని పెడతాం జరిగింది. ఇది కాకుండా స్పెషల్ స్ట్రైకింగ్ ఫోర్స్ గా కొంచెం మన స్పెషల్ పార్టీస్ ని డిఎస్పీస్ కి
పశ్చిమ గోదావరి జిల్లా వెంకటరామన్నగూడెంలోని డాక్టర్ వైఎస్ఆర్ ఉద్యాన విశ్వవిద్యాలయంలో బంగ్లాదేశ్కు చెందిన మహిళా పారిశ్రామికవేత్తలకు శిక్షణా తరగతులు జరుగుతున్నాయి. ఈ నెల 16వ తేదీ వరకు జరిగే ఈ శిక్షణలో పూల వినియోగంలో వాణిజ్యపరంగా భారత్ అనుసరిస్తున్న సాంకేతిక పరిజ్ఞానాన్ని తెలుసుకోనున్నారు. ఈ సందర్భంగా బంగ్లాదేశ్కు చెందిన షేక్ ఏ బంగ్లా వ్యవసాయ విశ్వవిద్యాలయ ఆచార్యులు అబుల్ ఫైజ్ మహ్మద్ జమాలుద్దీన్ మాట్లాడుతూ భారతదేశంలో వాణిజ్యపరంగా పూలు వినియోగిస్తున్న పరిజ్ఞానం ప్రశంసనీయమని అభివర్ణించారు. తమ దేశంలో పూల సాగు అధికంగా చేపడుతున్నా వాటికి విలువ జోడించడంలో వెనుకంజలో ఉన్నామన్నారు. ఈ నేపథ్యంలో వైఎస్ఆర్ ఉద్యాన విశ్వవిద్యాలయంలో శిక్షణ కోసం వచ్చామన్నారు.
Utilize this flower in commercial venture. So our government is planning to introduce these modern technologies in our Bangladesh sector, flower sector. So we are here, a team of 10 members here, that is to learn how to improve our in the flower industry, to learn how we can value edit our flower in Bangladesh condition. So we are here for 10 days and we are trying to learn the modern technologies and hope we will learn a lot of knowledge here from the modern technology and the conventional technology. We will adopt these technologies in Bangladesh.
ఈ వార్తలు ఇంతటితో సమాప్తం. నమస్కారం.
What is your perspective on startups which have women co-founders when they approach your company for support? Does that become an attribute or positive when it comes to considering a seed stage startup for funding?
I'll put it this way, right? I think it's always good to have diversity because when I say diversity, it's not just in terms of gender, but in terms of people's different career experiences and the different exposures they had in life, because it helps a lot when you do decision making, when you have to build a product, when you have to look at customer empathy, right? Empathy towards the customer, that these factors become extremely important in company building and in product building. And in that way, it helps. And another factor is for a women founder, in general, if you have a women investor, connect gets established for sure. And the networking becomes different. You don't have to do the traditional networking how men have to typically do. So with women investors, the networking becomes different.
Okay.
I think those are plus points to have a woman in both sides of the table, be a founder or be an investor. What I would also like to highlight here is if we rise above all of this and see what's happening globally, there is a recent Harvard Business Review article which says what are the downsides of a women founder raising only from a women-led VC. What they say is when they go for the further fundraise, then other VCs tend to look at it, hey, did she get funding because she is a woman from a women VC? Yeah, so there is a attribution bias that comes into the play. So I would say that there are inherent biases in many of us, which has been ingrained from many decades.
Yes, inherent bias could creep in due to other factors as well, apart from gender. There are so many other inherent biases that could be creeping in as well.
Correct. So as a society and as investors, as players in the ecosystem, I think we have to be conscious in keeping these biases out. First, recognizing the biases and keeping these biases out. Then I think we will start promoting entrepreneurship and backing founders for the fundamental aspects of the business and for their ideas than for anything else.
Apurva, you couldn't complete your answer earlier, got interrupted because of bad network, but I'd just like to add something to what you were already responding to. Is in terms of your assessment, what is your sense in terms of why this is happening, why we're seeing these numbers rising where the funding of women startups is concerned? It's doing better than the ecosystem in a year where funding has been affected.
I think, it's just more education in the ecosystem. I think more, since we have more role models, not only at the operator level, but also in the investor community. There are so many women who have now risen to leadership decision-making positions. And now, obviously, because of their presence, the biases are reduced. So people are able to appreciate the company for the merit of it, for the business model, for the caliber of the founder, and not kind of, color yourself with inherent biases. As you said, there are so many biases. It's not just because of gender. If you look at the startup ecosystem, most founders will be from an IIT, IIM background, but that doesn't essentially mean that they are the best execution people in the industry. There are so many founders who will do a better job at execution, but it's just that, in a country where there are so many people, India is always, more elimination than selection. So you have certain biases, you eliminate people basis that, because just the quantum of people is so much more that selection takes a back seat and elimination is the decision-making criteria in most conditions, right?
Yeah.
But I think that evolution has happened because there are more decision makers, which are women at senior leadership levels at VC and private equity. And hence there is, and also obviously the existence of more role models who are female entrepreneurs who have done very well for their shareholders.
Great, great. Yes, that does make a lot of sense. Now, Ravi, in the context of NetApp's accelerator program, again, this sub set that you have, what has been your experience where women entrepreneurs are concerned? Where do they need the most hand-holding, and where do they have an edge compared to their male counterparts, or is there no distinction at all?
I wouldn't make that distinction. There's a distinction between every individual, and you have to realize that kind of outshines everything that otherwise can be compartmentalized. So I'll give you an example, right? When you look at our startup accelerator, the kind of things that we feel that we are good at is to be able to give people access to brilliant technologists. We are able to give them access to global markets because we are a multinational, we are a US founded company. We're able to give them access to marketeers. So everybody has a different need, right? And we can kind of take care of what their needs are. I'll tell you where my learning comes in, right? There's a lot of inherent prejudice that as I even participated with our accelerator program, you can just start seeing, glass ceilings breaking away. So I'll give you an example. One of our entrepreneurs, Surbi Shah, she's a, small town in Jharkhand, focus on industrial automation. Okay. Now, think of this. Most of this country feels that a woman's place is at home. Here's a woman who kind of is like creating breakthrough innovation on the factory shop floor. It changes the way you think about things. So I feel that, what our single most valuable component of the Accelerator program is the mentorship that goes both ways. Not just that the mentorship we can take to the woman entrepreneur, but there are so few of women entrepreneurs in the country that when we want one of them to come in and kind of mentor our talent, and our talent, not just women, but women and men equally, there aren't too many. And it's important to have that diversity. As both our guests have told us too. Our markets are heterogeneous. There are so many kind of variations in this country. You just need all the diversity you can get on your team. And I think that was our big learning.
All right. Wonderful. Now, Apurva, over the recent years, we've seen the government and the ecosystem itself taking several steps to not only encourage women entrepreneurs, but also to have more and more women become entrepreneurs. Now, how well directed are these efforts?
So I think, of course, the government has brought new initiatives. So I've read, for example, about Bhartiya Mahila Bank Business Loan, where any female entrepreneur can take a loan up to, say, 20 crores. There's also Women Entrepreneurship Platform, which is led by Niti Aayog, which is a platform for connecting women founders with sponsors. Similarly, there's Mudra Yojana, etc., for small-scale businesses for applying loans up to 20 lakhs. And so of course, there is a lot of, I would say, schemes available. I don't think there's a lot of knowledge about such schemes to the general people. I don't think people are aware of such schemes specifically designed for women. So I think a better job can be done at disseminating this information. Okay. And at the end of the day, I have spoken to so many female founders. They just don't want themselves to be called female founders. All they want to be called is founders, and they're not looking for some special treatment or special opportunity or special scheme. All they are looking for is equal opportunity and, decision making without bias.
Okay, fair enough. That is the way it should be, and we are trying to evolve to that sort of a stage. Now, Bhargavi, there's data that also says that women-led startups are mostly in fashion, baby care, e-commerce, D2C and other types of marketplace spaces, less so in spaces like deep tech. Now, why do you think that is the case, and is that set to change as well, or is that just a perception?
I wouldn't say that's wrong, because even from the experience of the number of women founders operating in a SaaS company or a deep tech company who we interact with is very low compared to other sectors. So it is probably true. We want to see more women working on deep technologies and core technologies. If you ask me why is it so, I think it's just because of the traditional conditioning that has been done, right? So I hope it will change in the future as more and more women successful founders stories we listen, and who have been able to spend 5-6 years in just doing R&D and building a product and coming up with a cutting edge technology, right? So that would be my wish.
And of course, more and more women coming at the formative stage itself, and then getting into STEM when they, come out of schools and get into colleges.
Yeah, I think in terms of women doing engineering or STEM courses has increased in the past, right? So I think I wouldn't attribute this to the education aspect. I would attribute this to more about the conditioning aspect, right?
Okay.
Maybe it is easier for a woman to associate herself well with a D2C product and easier to get it launched, whereas deep technology requires more continuous effort and more dedicated effort, which requires a lot of ecosystem support both at home and in terms of the general startup ecosystem. And not only that, when in colleges, when they have to do PhDs and when they have to do fundamental research, there is a lot of support which is required from academia as well. So I think that is something which is changing only in the recent past, and that's why I believe in the future, in the next decade, we will see more women coming from STEM areas in deep technologies and other core tech.
Definitely. Now, Ravi, let me ask you, the male person in our panel and the only one today, do you think the presence of women in the funding space, like Apurva and Bhargavi, will also become a major factor in the coming days when it comes to the funding of women-led startups, or it may not make that big a difference because funding has its own set of considerations where gender of the founders may not be an issue at all?
See, capitalism isn't defined by gender. So I'm figuring that every one of these ladies that is kind of, out there for kind of funding winners isn't going to be, predicating decisions based on gender themselves. But the fact that you bring in people with diverse backgrounds, diverse life experiences into the mix, people make different decisions. And I think different decisions sometimes have better outcomes. That's the argument for diversity. And I think I'd just like to leave it at that. And to tell you the truth, when we kind of build up our panel that is kind of selecting startups for the future, we do have representation from women, either past women founders or, even founders of capital firms that are women-led. That helps us. We think it's important to do that, not because they'll identify more women entrepreneurs, but they just bring balance to the panel.
Okay, great. Well, that is the way things should be progressing, and they are in a way as well. It's not being forced in any manner that you have to pick women-led startups for funding. None of the startups do that. There are some funds that have been launched to that effect, but that is very limited right now, and we don't know if that will expand further or not. But overall, as long as you enable and empower women at all levels, this is going to be happening in the natural course, and that's, I think, what we're seeing right now in the country, and that will be something that will perhaps we'll see mushrooming further as well. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about it today.
Thank you so much, Gautam. Thanks everyone.
All right, that's all we have for the moment in this edition of India Ideas. Once more, a very happy International Women's Day to everyone on this entire planet, really, because that's what we're celebrating. We're celebrating the gender, also the fact that this gender contributes a huge lot to the progress of the entire humanity. And keep watching DD India as well.
पापा ये सब?
हाँ, जो चीजें सालों से बेवजह पड़ी हो उन्हें हटा देना चाहिए।
ये भी दादाजी की पुरानी पासबुक और एफडी।
अरे ये कैसे रह गया?
पैसे गए?
नहीं, उपाय है। बैंक खाते को संचालित करते रहना चाहिए, वरना खाता इनऑपरेटिव हो जाता है। ऐसे में बैंक से संपर्क करें, खाता सक्रिय करवाएं और आपकी रकम जो है उसे ब्याज समेत क्लेम करें।
दादू ये
आरबीआई कहता है
जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
सही कह रहा है।
छिपा है ये, पुरखों की कृपा है ये, दिखलाएगा रास्ता। अथ योगानुशासनम, अथ योगानुशासनम। दुनिया में प्रसिद्ध जो, अपने आप सिद्ध जो, रखना इस पे आस था। अथ योगानुशासनम, अथ योगानुशासनम। योगारंभ हो, योगारंभ हो, योगारंभ हो, योगारंभ हो।
विश्व को भेंट दी हमने ये योग है। योगारंभ हो, योगारंभ हो।
जो सुलझा दे जीवन को वो योग है।
जो सुलझा दे जीवन को वो योग है।
अथ योगानुशासनम, अथ योगानुशासनम। बुद्धियुक्तो जहातीह उभे सुकृत दुष्कृते, तस्मात् योगाय युज्यस्व। योगः कर्मसु कौशलम्, योगः कर्मसु कौशलम्। अथ योगानुशासनम, अथ योगानुशासनम। भारत ने ही योग सिखाया, जग में फैलाया।
विश्व ने अपनाया, नियंत्रण आया रोग पे।
विश्व ने जैसे है पाया जो अधिकार ये, अब आरोग्य पे है सब हो पाया योग से। सदियों से रहा है ये, सब ही ने कहा है ये।
हरदम देगा आसरा।
अथ योगानुशासनम, अथ योगानुशासनम। योगारंभ हो, योगारंभ हो।
ये शरीर और मन का संजोग है।
योगारंभ हो, योगारंभ हो। जो सुलझा दे जीवन को वो योग है। जो सुलझा दे जीवन को वो योग है। योगारंभ हो, आरंभ हो। योगारंभ हो।
Since you've studied agriculture so extensively, and India is an agricultural country, where do you think we're lacking?
Very large base of marginal farmers. We have not been able to bring in technology into our agriculture in a big way. Farm mechanization has not happened on the scale that should have happened decades ago. But the new vision of the Honorable Prime Minister is certainly making a big change. The 1 lakh crore agricultural infrastructure fund is a huge fund infusion, financial kind of induction into the agricultural sector. This is going to change the way that agriculture is done in this country.
G20 नए विचारों की परिकल्पना के लिए और सामूहिक एक्शन को गति देने के लिए एक ग्लोबल प्राइम मूवर की तरह काम करें। वैश्विक विकास महिलाओं की भागीदारी के बिना संभव नहीं है। भारत की G20 अध्यक्षता की थीम वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर में पूर्ण रूप से समाहित है।
happened in the relationships that I had that were so written about and so scandalized so many people. What happened in those things, what happened in my journey from Bollywood to Europe to Hollywood, all that had to be told. I said, if not now, when? If not me, who?
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Virtual Encounters. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. We have former England cricketer Monty Panesar as our guest today. He played 50 Test, 26 ODIs and a T20 international for the England cricket team. He's all set to take part in the Legends League cricket. Now, welcome Monty, welcome to DD India. Appreciate you giving us your precious time. First of all, how are you doing? So good to have you on DD India. All set to play in Legends League cricket?
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to get started. Absolutely loving it being here in Qatar, and sort of had a first training session today, and Hashim Amla, Jack Callis are hitting the ball really well. So it's really good, you know, to play for World Giants, be part of this league. It's an amazing concept, and I'm sure there's a lot of people excited.
Absolutely. A lot of people are excited to see the legends of the game playing cricket again. But you were one of the most successful bowlers last season. If I remember, you had taken 12 wickets in 7 matches. You're trying to repeat the feat?
Well, I'll try and see if there's turning wickets, then yeah, obviously I'll have a chance. But this time round, all the teams are much stronger. So hopefully, yeah, it'll be nice to get the ball turning and get some wickets.
But you must have hit the nets. I mean, maybe trying to get back into the rhythm. And league takes a lot of toll, especially when you stop playing regular cricket. How are you coping with that?
Yeah, I think a lot of the guys, what they tend to do, they know their bodies really well. So, you do a few run sessions, go to the gym, and it's just about keeping your physical fitness, because you hit a few balls, bowl a few balls, and then your rhythm comes back again. So I think a lot of the guys, they try and keep themselves fit, and you see a lot of them. They're in the gym and they're training really hard. So yeah, everybody wants to make this tournament a real massive success.
Monty, last season happened in India, and this time it's being held in Qatar. You think you'll get the same crowd here?
Yeah, let's hope so. There's a lot of people love live sporting events in Qatar since we've seen the World Cup, and stadium looks amazing. So we're hoping a full packed house.
And also, like you mentioned, Monty, I mean, likes of Jack Callis, Hashim Amla, Shane Watson, Murli, all will be playing together. Indian players also, Irfan Pathan will be part of the league. And the idea of getting former and international cricketers, the legends of the game who have played cricket, back into the field, it's like a sweet nostalgic spot. I mean, you think it's a great concept, bringing the former cricketers back again, playing cricket, and we got a massive crowd there last time in India.
Yeah, look, I think it's a brilliant idea. Got so many IPL legends and international cricketers who are sort of retired, and I think this concept is a brilliant one, because there'll be a lot of people out there who want to watch their favourite players who they've seen over the last sort of 10 to 12 years, and now they're back in action with the Legends League cricket. So I think it's a brilliant idea, and I'm so excited to be part of it. Last time, World Giants won, so, our team won. But I think this time round, there's the India Maharajas is really strong, so are the Asian Lions, and World Giants as well. But it's going to be exciting, and the viewership has gone through the roof whenever these tournaments are held in across the world, and especially in India, because that's where the big market is.
Yeah, absolutely, Monty. Like you said, the viewership also has been immense. If we talk about the last season, I mean, Raman Raheja also said, the CEO of the league said that it's only second to the IPL, which is, I think it's great. I mean, people are getting the stadium also to watch cricket, and also on the TV also. I mean, it's everywhere. People want to see the former cricketers playing.
Absolutely, and I think that's what there is. Initially, we had it in Muscat, and now it's in Qatar. So there's huge appetite for live sport in the Middle East and also in India as well. So it's all driven by the fans, and they absolutely want to see their sort of idols that they saw them during the IPL, and now they're back in action. So I'm super excited about it, and let's hope the tournament is a huge success for everyone.
Absolutely. We are all hoping that the tournament is a huge success and you repeat your feat. You took 12 wickets in the last season. Hope you do well again and hope your team also defend the title. But I want to talk about the Gaoskar Trophy, Monty. I mean, what do you make of the pitches in the first 3 test matches here? Matches getting over in 3 days, 3.5 days. What do you want to say? First, your take on the pitches that India and Australia are playing in the first 3 matches.
Yeah, well, you see, with most teams, they take home advantage, and India's home advantage is the ball turning on day one, and I think they're definitely playing to that. They know that the teams that are coming to play Test cricket in India, it's going to be difficult for them because the spin, the turn, they're very smart cricketers. The Indians, they know their own home conditions really well. They know how to perform when the ball is turning. Their batters know how to play the turning ball much better than the overseas players. So I just think that India are probably playing to their advantage. And I think since 2012, when it was England, our team last time when we beat India in India, since then, no team is able to do that. So I think all test nations are looking at India as the most difficult tour. And I think India are doing the right thing. They've got to play to their advantage because all the other nations do it. In England, we see green wickets in May and June. Australia, the first couple of test matches, there's always, green pitches. So I just think that India are doing the right thing. They're playing to their home advantage.
Absolutely. Like you said, Monty, many would say that England make pitches that suit their bowlers. In Australia, we get bouncy tracks. And in South Africa also, we get green top mostly. What if there are rank turners in India? But many are criticizing and many are saying that Indians are using their wickets to their advantage. But I'm sure you would have loved to bowl in these kind of wickets.
Absolutely. When they see the ball turn so much, especially day one, you're like, oh, my, fingers start getting itchy. And I think, I want to have a bowl. I want to get the SG ball in my hand and start getting a few wickets because of these kind of pitches, it's only so long a batsman can last and eventually they will get out. There is a the ball has your name on it. But I think India could do another thing. I think India is a much stronger team. They don't need to possibly play, get the ball to turn as much. Maybe they can think about, well, we're so good against the turning delivery. Maybe produce slightly flatter pitches and see if the test match goes into day 3, day 4. I think this India side is still good enough on flat pitches to win in India. But that's entirely up to the captain and the coach. But I'm sure, as you do, you want to play home advantage.
Absolutely. And since we are talking about Indian cricket now, overall, I want to know your opinion. Overall, are you happy with the way Indian cricket is going in all the formats, be it 2020s, be it ODIs or test matches? What do you want to say about the bench strength that India has? Rohit Sharma, India's captain, also with the 50-over World Cup coming up. How do you see Indian cricket team's future and the bench strength also?
Yeah, look, India's been very strong over the last 10 years, but the one question kind of remains is that they haven't won an ICC trophy since MS Dhoni has retired. And I just think that one of the reasons being is that they haven't found a replacement for Yuvraj Singh because he's been a big match player for India. You look at the T20 World Cup when they won and the 50-over World Cup, Yuvraj Singh played he was a big match player. He played some big innings. Since then, they haven't really found a replacement for him. They managed to get to the semi-finals, but they don't seem to push on further. So I just think that, they've got to work out how do we win the World Cup in India this year. I think they're going to be firm favourites to do it. But the key is there's a pressure of, 1 billion people who absolutely want India to win the World Cup in India. They're huge expectations. Everyone's going to think, in India, they're going to win it. But how do you do that? And I just feel that, Virat Kohli is a big player. he needs to does he necessarily need to play every game? Could he just play only the big games? You know, we saw during the T20 World Cup in Australia, there were games against like Zimbabwe and some of the other teams where Virat Kohli, you know, doesn't need to play. You know, he just needs to be there for the big games and maybe give some of the other guys in the squad a chance to play. So I think, you know, India are favourites to win the World Cup. I think they just got to manage the expectations of the players and maybe be strategic in playing the big players for the big matches and maybe tell some of the squad players in some of the lesser games.
Absolutely, and manage the workload also, because they're playing a lot of cricket, including the Indian Premier League. Do you also agree with different teams for different formats? Because last year, when India played the T20 World Cup in Australia, they reached the semi-finals, and nobody wants to remember the way they lost to England. And many were saying after the loss that India should have different teams for different formats. Do you also agree with it?
Well, that really depends on India and their like structure, how the captains respond with different coaches. You know, some of the big players may not want that. You know, the likes of Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli. You know, they may think, actually, you know what, it suits us better having one coach, and because they play all the formats, they may not want that. So it very much depends on the bigger players what suits them. And this is a big year for India. You know, they've started off really well, and they've done very well. They retained the Gavaskar and Border Trophy. So I think their real assessment is going to be how they perform during the World Cup in India this year. Now, if they win it, then I'm sure, you know, they dictate what structure they want, what coach to have in place, what works for them. But if they don't win it, then I think that argument is going to be hugely highlighted by a lot of ex-players, a lot of people in the media. They're going to think, well, guys, you know, I think maybe our style of thinking is a bit old school now. We've got to, you know, be with the times. So I think it very much depends how India perform during the World Cup in India this year.
Absolutely, and there was a lot of talk whether KL Rahul should be part of the test team or not. It's a different debate altogether. We'll talk about it, but since we are talking about the World Cup, Monty, it was a great win for England in the T20 World Cup. We all saw now 50-over World Cup coming up. They are the defending champions also. How do you see England's chances in the World Cup?
Well, England done really well during the ODI series against Bangladesh, and I think that was a kind of a smart thinking just to assess where England are at in spinning conditions, you know, subcontinent conditions. And it was only the last ODI where they sort of didn't perform so well, and the challenge is always going to be against spin. So I think India are going to be firm favourites because they're just so difficult to beat in home conditions. And it really depends how England perform against the turning delivery. That is going to be the key with all the nations. You know, when that ball starts turning, when the run rate is up against it, and they have to hit the spinner out of the ground, the ball's not coming onto the bat. That is going to be the biggest challenge for, I think, all teams, especially against India.
Absolutely. But when we talk about England, we need to talk about James Anderson too. Monty, what a player at the age of 40. He's almost 41, and he has reclaimed the #1 bowlers ranking. Age is just a number for him.
Very much so. You know, I wrote a column in my in the Daily Telegraph, which are a regular sort of work with them, and I basically, you know, he was my favourite. They asked me the question, who would you go for, Stuart Broad or James Anderson? I went for James Anderson, played under 19s with him, played national team cricket together. And I think what's happened with him, his hunger hasn't diminished, and he's been very professional with his fitness, with his body, and everything like that. And he just really enjoys being in challenging situations to get wickets, to be the match winner, and he just keeps going, you know. And if he keeps going, I reckon he probably end up breaking Mutai Murali's record of 800, because I just can't see him retire at any point. But the Ashes are coming up; it'll be a big series for him. If he does really well in that, I reckon he's got another 2 more years to go.
All right, Monty, you talked about Anderson and Stuart Broad and Anderson playing together. Broad is also 36. Anderson is almost 41. You think big asset for England in test matches?
Well, I think the Ashes coming up is going to be the biggest benchmark for both of them. I just think that if England win it, then both of them probably, it's up to them how long they decide. But if they don't perform so well, then maybe, the coaches will start deciding, which one to retire, or do they both retire at the same time? Will it leave a bigger hole for the England team? And we've seen that in the past, with Kumara Sangakkara and Mahela Jayawardene retiring at the same time. Sri Lanka cricket took a while to get back where it needs to be, and same with Australia, when obviously the great Shane Warne, Glenn McGrath and Justin Langer, they retired together. So it very much depends how they perform against Australia when the Ashes are on in the summer.
Absolutely. And I need to talk about your career also, Monty. You have played 50 tests for England, 26 ODIs, and a T20 international also, 219 first-class game. You played international cricket for 7-8 years, first class for almost 15 years. Are you satisfied with your career?
Yeah, well, I think there's been highs and there's been certain lows, but generally I think I'm pleased with my career. Possibly could have played another 20, 30 test matches, maybe taken another sort of 100 wickets, but I think all players tend to sort of, say a little bit more than they should have done. But I think, generally speaking, won the Ashes twice, won in India, and also, so much love and support from the fans in India, England, all over the world. I can't ask for anything more. So, yeah, I'm very satisfied with my career.
And your most prized wicket would be your first wicket of Sachin Tendulkar. I've never seen you celebrating like that in your entire career.
Yeah, I think that'll probably be my favorite moment in Test cricket. I never expected, to get the great man out, but I think it was just a celebration, really, probably celebrating his greatness or the complete shock of getting, someone high profile as Sachin Tendulkar. So I tend to not mention it too often because I think the Indian public don't really like it. So I tend to have like over 20% of the world population sort of not disliking me because they go, you took Sachin Tendulkar as your first Test wicket.
Yeah. And absolutely. And you had a great partnership also in 2012. Did you enjoy bowling in India? I mean, maybe your favorite destination to bowl here. And you had a great partnership with Graeme Swann also in 2012. You had a record also. You both took 19 wickets in 4 test matches, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, we absolutely loved it here. And I think, the hospitality, the love of cricket, the way everyone sort of, just gives so much warmth and affection. I absolutely love India. And also the pitches, they do tend to turn a bit more, but the SG ball kind of changed a little bit. The seam became a bit more pronounced, a little bit more harder than I previously played on Indian tours where the seam gets very soft very quickly. So, the balls have been, I think, the biggest difference. The quality of balls have been much better, and that allows me to bowl with a bit more pace. And knowing that the harder seam will bite and catch and get a better turn. So yeah, it's been, I absolutely love coming to India and I loved bowling here.
And if I ask you about your best moment in international cricket, maybe your first wicket of Sachin Tendulkar, Ashes win, 5 wickets at the Waka, I remember, maybe your debut or 23 wickets against the West Indies in that series, your best moment in international cricket.
Yeah, look, there's been many fine moments, individual performances that I've talked about, but I think one of my favourite moments have always been winning the Ashes in Australia. And I think as a squad, when we sat down at Sydney and all of the squad was there on the square, we were just going through everyone's favourite moments. And I thoroughly enjoyed that moment because it was just unbelievable. I didn't play any of the Test matches, but I very much felt part of it. And that was to do with the, how the coaches and the members of the players made everyone felt part of the team. So, winning in Australia, the Ashes is a huge, huge moment. And also winning in India, that was massive as well. I think it was 27 years since England last time won in India. Just shows how difficult it is. So, yeah, for me, they were probably the 2 of the biggest moments of my career.
Right. You have shared your best moments in international cricket. What is that thing that you regret in your cricketing career?
Well, I wish I was better at fielding. I wish I was better at catching a cricket ball. And I remember, Graham Fowler said to me when I was at Loughborough University, he was the coach for British University. He goes, the reason you're not, so good at fielding because the ball comes at you and you practice very much getting, throwing the ball towards or bowling the ball to the batter. So you're not training the skill of the ball to come at you as much. So that's why maybe, I didn't become as good as fielding. And I wish I had a personal trainer, where I could have become a bit more athletic for my body, then maybe I would have been a better fielder.
Right. Everyone goes through tough times, Monty. I mean, you shared a great camaraderie with Andrew Flintoff, you all know, who supported you during your tough times. I mean, I think I was reading an article. He was the one who encouraged you in your first test also against India, in India. But I want to ask you, I mean, who was there, who was always there with you, who supported you during your tough times, your difficult times? Who stepped up and called you to motivate you all the time?
Yeah, look, very much my family and friends were there, but Andrew Flintoff was there, even during my good times and during the tough times. He was very supportive, and he kind of felt like, something wasn't maybe quite right with me, and he really reached out, and it kind of helped me a lot. So, I always thank Andrew Flintoff for being there for me and helping me, for my, tougher times.
Right, Monty, and also most of the sports persons are openly coming up and saying that they are dealing with some issues, some mental health issues, and they want break from their respective sport. You think it's a good thing that they are openly coming up, and federations are also supporting, the authorities are also supporting the players?
Yeah, well, it's become a common thing now. Last 10 to 15 years, there weren't people talking so much about, mental health issues. But I think now, if the demand on a sportsman is so much that they're playing in front of 20, 30, even 50,000 people, and there's day in, day out, you have to perform. And if you're a big match player, and the fans and the stakeholders, the owners, or franchise leagues, or even the board members, they really want you to keep performing and winning games, either for your country or the teams that you play for. And there comes a moment where you just can't keep doing and keep delivering. So I think there's a lot more education that's being given out there for the coaches to deal with, like, people who are going with mental health issues, or certainly they're not performing so well and they put so much pressure on their performances that starts affecting the mind, and then suddenly you really need a break from the game just to refresh yourself. So I think it takes a brave person to talk about it, but if you can, then it's a good thing. And I think a lot of people now are very sympathetic, and they have a better understanding why sports people do have some sort of mental illness or a mental problem. And the reason being is most of it's performance related, or could be something off the field, but generally I think there's a lot more support. So if any sportsman is suffering from it, please do talk about it, because it'll help you in the long run.
And you're enjoying your life post cricket as a broadcaster now. You're analyzing cricket, also got the scouting role also for the Middlesex.
Yeah, very much so. It's always difficult to know what you want to do after cricket. But then, I did a degree in sports journalism, did a master's in that at St. Mary's University, and then sort of trying to develop this sports broadcasting career, and also, other career as well, just trying to see where the entertainment industry, working on TV and things like that. As a TV personality or a pundit. So yeah, just so many different goals out there where you want to sort of reach and make yourself into. I think the challenge is, right, the success that you had as a cricketer, can you have a second career that is equally successful? And I think that's always drives sports people.
And what do you do apart from watching cricket and analyzing? You watch a lot of football also, I've heard.
Big Arsenal fan. Every Saturday after this winter's been brilliant for me. We're winning a lot of games, and I always have a huge smile on my face every Saturday. So yeah, I hope Arsenal win the league this year. Big Arsenal fan. And also, Luton Town as well. We, as football fans, we have irrational behaviours. We have a local team and a Premiership team that we support. And I'm into my fitness. I love my fitness. I have a dog as well called Rambo. He's a small dog, but he has a personality of a Rambo. So, do that kind of stuff. I'm into my climate change. I'm a climate change campaigner. Also talk about, mental health. So just trying to broaden my horizon. I think since my sort of sports journalism, degree, I'm learning a bit more about the different styles of presenting and broadcasting. So just expanding my whole knowledge on that, and very much enjoying it.
Right, you're a great fan of Arsenal. You're a great fan of Shah Rukh Khan also. I've heard you watch a lot of Bollywood stuff too.
Yeah, I do actually. I watch a lot of it, and it all started off with Bazigar with Shah Rukh Khan, and after that, I couldn't. I just love his creativity, his talent. He's brilliant, and congratulations to him. I think he got over 1,000 crore on his recent movie Pathan, and Salman Khan. I'm a big fan of. I watch Big Boss. I don't miss an episode, and weekend coverage, I'm big on that as well. I love the way he gives the analysis and character sort of an assassination of all the people who are in there. He's absolutely brilliant. You can relate to normal day-to-day life, the way he sort of talks about the things that are happening on Big Boss, and absolutely love it.
Last question before we wind up, Monty. What advice you want to give to the youngsters who want to play cricket, or they want to play international sport, but they don't know where to start from? What do you want to tell them?
Yeah, I think the first thing you got to do is you got to ask yourself, am I enjoying the game? Do I have a lot of fun? And also you got to know that you got to have more, you got to have more unsuccessful days than good days. And if you can deal with that, then it's definitely for you. It's for the, cricket's for the big-hearted person. It's, you got to know that you got to tolerate with a lot of failures, and there's a lot of sacrifice that needs to be made. But the most important thing is you want to have fun with the living up, the struggle and the disciplined life that you need to be a sportsman. But then once you get the successes, you're a hero, aren't you? Once you win a game, and then the next day you get out for zero, suddenly the media are at you and you think, you're not a good player. But there's a lot of, a lot of reward being a professional sportsman. You just got to enjoy the whole process, the journey of becoming a sportsman.
Right, Monty, like you said, cricket is a great leveler. You can score 100 and next day you can get out on 0 also. And love for the game is very important, and have fun. Fun is also very important if you want to continue playing the professional cricket. Thank you, Monty. Thank you for giving us your precious time. You were superb with your answers. All the best to you for your future endeavors, and all the best for the Legends League cricket also. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
What happened in the relationships that I had that were so written about and so scandalized so many people. What happened in those things, what happened in my journey from Bollywood to Europe to Hollywood, all that had to be told. I said, if not now, when? If not me, who?
Since you've studied agriculture so extensively, and India is an agricultural country, where do you think we're lacking?
Very large base of marginal farmers. We have not been able to bring in technology into our agriculture in a big way. Farm mechanization has not happened on the scale that should have happened decades ago. But the new vision of the Honorable Prime Minister is certainly making a big change. The 1 lakh crore agricultural infrastructure fund is a huge fund infusion, financial kind of induction into the agricultural sector. This is going to change the way that agriculture is done in this country.
Your weekend dose of headlines, controversies, and perspective. Rahul Gandhi's utterances at Cambridge and other events in London created a lot of reaction, lot of controversies.
Rahul Gandhi has the full right to raise any kind of issue which he feels close to his heart or he feels that it's important for the country. But he should choose his platforms more carefully.
Indian democracy is not only robust and flourishing, but it is yielding the desired results.
Ironically, Rahul Gandhi is, as usual, turning out to be the best champion of Narendra Modi's success and achievement and accomplishment.
Very good evening. Welcome to News Connect, your weekend special where we take stock of all the stories that matter to India and the world. Our big focus is on that SVB story that we're going to track across the next 60 minutes. Also taking a look at the test match between India and Australia that's looking all set for a draw. But we never know how things change on day 4 and day 5 of this test match. I'm Anil Thomas. Let's get started this Saturday evening with the top stories that we are tracking. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses the post-budget webinar on PM Vishwakarma Kaushal Samman or PM Vikas, stresses on the need to support skilled human resource from different walks of life, says Vishwakarmas of today can become entrepreneurs of tomorrow. Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Singh Thakur says Y20 consultation theme holds greater significance at a time when the world is grappling with complex challenges. He was speaking at the inaugural session of Y20 consultations in Pune. Adds there is also a transform information warfare and that technology acts as an enabler and intrusive. US regulator shut down Silicon Valley Bank in a move that sent global banking shares into turmoil. US Treasury Secretary urges member of the US House of Representatives to raise the federal debt ceiling without conditions. Janet Yellen warns a default on US debt would cause an economic and financial catastrophe. Dangerous winter storm dumps heavy precipitation over large swaths of California. More than 39 million residents under weather warning or advisory. Dozens of counties under a state of emergency. Emergency services in Australia's Queensland state. Residents evacuated to higher ground over the weekend. Record-breaking floods sparked by heavy rains lashed the region's northwest. Opening batsman Shubman Gill leads India's run charge on day 3 of the Ahmedabad Test against Australia. Scores a century to put India back in the race. Hosts look to close in on Australia's first innings score of 480. Well, those are the headlines we're tracking now for the stories in detail. Starting first up with Prime Minister Narendra Modi today addressing the post-budget webinar on PM Vishwakarma Kaushal Samman or PM Vikas. It was a part of the series of 12 post-budget webinars being organized by the Government of India to seek ideas and suggestions for effective implementation of the incentives announced in the Union Budget. PM Vishwakarma Yojana is aimed at hand-holding of artisans and people associated with small businesses. In today's remarks, the Prime Minister said that we need to support our skilled human resource from different walks of life, and thus the government has trained crores of people under Skill India mission.
बीते वर्षों में हमने स्किल इंडिया मिशन के माध्यम से, कौशल विकास केंद्रों के माध्यम से करोड़ों युवाओं की स्किल बढ़ाने, उन्हें रोजगार के नए अवसर देने का काम किया है। कौशल जैसे क्षेत्र में हम जितना स्पेसिफिक होंगे, जितनी टारगेटेड अप्रोच होगी, उतने ही बेहतर परिणाम मिलेंगे।
He added that there is a need to incorporate the latest technologies into the traditional process of creation, helping beneficiaries of PM Vishwakarma Yojana.
पीएम विश्वकर्मा योजना के माध्यम से करोड़ों लोगों की बड़ी मदद होने जा रही है। इस योजना के द्वारा केंद्र सरकार हर विश्वकर्मा साथी को होलिस्टिक इंस्टीट्यूशनल सपोर्ट प्रदान करेगी। विश्वकर्मा साथियों को आसानी से लोन मिले, उनका कौशल बढ़े, उन्हें हर तरह का टेक्निकल सपोर्ट मिले, ये सब सुनिश्चित किया जाएगा। इसके अलावा डिजिटल एम्पावरमेंट, ब्रांड प्रमोशन और उत्पादों के बाजार तक पहुंच बनाने की व्यवस्था भी की जाएगी।
Well, during the webinar, Prime Minister also stressed that the Vishwakarmas of today can become entrepreneurs of tomorrow.
हमारा उद्देश्य आज के विश्वकर्मा साथियों को कल का बड़ा एंटरप्रेन्योर बनाने का है। इसके लिए उनके बिजनेस मॉडल में स्थायित्व जरूरी है। इसे ध्यान में रखते हुए हम उनके बनाए प्रोडक्ट को बेहतर बनाने, आकर्षक डिजाइनिंग, पैकेजिंग और ब्रांडिंग पर भी काम कर रहे हैं। इसमें ग्राहकों की भी जरूरतों का भी ध्यान रखा जा रहा है। हमारी नजर सिर्फ स्थानीय बाजार पर ही नहीं है, बल्कि हम ग्लोबल मार्केट को भी टारगेट कर रहे हैं।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Karnataka tomorrow, where he will dedicate and lay the foundation stone of projects worth around 16,000 crore rupees. In Mandya, Prime Minister will dedicate and lay the foundation stone of key road projects. The rapid pace of development of infrastructure projects has been a testament to the vision of Prime Minister and to ensure that world-class connectivity is there across the country. Moving ahead in this endeavor, Prime Minister will dedicate the Bengaluru-Mysuru Expressway to the nation. The project involves 6-laning of the Bengaluru-Nidagatta-Mysuru section of NH 275, that's National Highway 275. The 118-kilometer long project has been developed at a total cost of around 8,480 crore rupees. It will reduce the travel time between Bengaluru and Mysuru from around 3 hours to about 75 minutes. It will act as catalyst for socio-economic development in the region, and Prime Minister will also lay the foundation stone for Mysuru-Kushalnagar 4-lane highway. Spread over 92 kilometers, the project will be developed at a cost of around 4,130 crore rupees. Prime Minister will also inaugurate and lay the foundation stone of various development initiatives in the Hubballi-Dharwad region. In Hubballi-Dharwad, Prime Minister Modi will dedicate IIT Dharwad to the nation. Developed at a cost of around 850 crore rupees, the institution currently offers 4-year BTech programs, interdisciplinary 5-year BS-MS programs, MTech and PhD programs. Besides, Prime Minister will dedicate to the nation the longest railway platform in the world at Sri Siddharuda Swami Hubballi Station. The record has been recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records recently. The 1,507-meter-long platform has been built at a cost of around 20 crore rupees. DD India correspondent Nandita Dagar gets you more.
This railway platform at the Sri Siddharuda Swamiji railway station in Hubballi is the longest in the world. With a length of 1,507 meters, it has been recognized by the Guinness Book of World Records. When Prime Minister Modi arrives in Karnataka on Sunday, he will be gifting a slew of projects, a bonanza of projects to Karnataka worth over rupees 16,000 crores. This newly built railway platform is one of them. Apart from that, a section of the Southwest Railways which has been electrified will also be dedicated to the nation. This apart from the IIT, the newly built IIT at Dharwad, which cost rupees 850 crores. As you would have seen in the past 8 years, the Narendra Modi government has focused a lot on infrastructure and connectivity. Prime Minister Modi has not just launched but built and completed several projects of infrastructure and connectivity, as he believes that this will usher in a boom or economic prosperity and make India a superpower economically and industrially. With camera person Ajit at Hubballi Railway Junction, this is Nandita Dagar for DD News.
Sportive and competitive, and academically it is really well. And after that, I would like to thank the facilities that are here currently, and also which we are gonna get after we're going over there, because we've seen infrastructure over there and it is really beautiful. And we've waited for this since a long time, and so now that I'm finally gonna get to stay over there, I feel like I'm really excited basically.
I'm really, really happy and grateful for our government to have given such a nice and wonderful campus in between reserve forest and lakes, and I'm really, really hopeful and looking forward to go there and study and complete my PhD there, and looking forward to see our PM Narendra Modi ji, who is going to inaugurate our campus tomorrow.
I'm always happy to be in this institution because of the diversity. We get to meet so many people, different minds of India. It has always been a pleasure for me to be here, and I'm looking forward for the event.
Well, moving to some other international stories, California banking regulators on Friday closed SVB Financial Group, putting the tech-heavy lender into receivership and will dispose of its assets, moving quickly to protect depositors as a crisis rippled through global markets and hit banking stocks. SVB CEO, meanwhile, sent a video message to employees acknowledging the incredibly difficult 48 hours leading up to its collapse. Shares of SVB were halted on Friday after tumbling as much as 66% in pre-market trading. The lender acted as a major financial conduit for venture capital-backed companies, which have been hit hard in the past 18 months as the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates and made riskier tech assets less attractive to investors. Let's take a look at this detailed report.
High-profile lender to the technology sector, the Silicon Valley Bank has been shut down by regulators and its assets have been seized. SVB, which specializes in venture capital financing, on Thursday announced a stock offering and offloaded securities to raise much-needed cash as it struggled with falling deposits. In reaction, the firm's shares collapsed 60% in New York on Thursday, and trading was suspended Friday morning before regulators announced they had closed the bank. The move makes SVB the largest retail bank to fail since 2008. The closure order was issued by California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, which also named the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation as the receiver. Receivership typically means a bank's deposits will be assumed by another. Healthy Bank, or the FDIC, will pay depositors up to the $250,000 insured limit. Issuing a statement, FDIC said that the main office and all branches of SVB will open on March 13, and all insured depositors will have full access to their insured deposits no later than Monday morning. Meanwhile, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen told reporters on Capitol Hill Friday the department was aware of recent developments regarding Silicon Valley Bank and was monitoring the situation. Calling it a matter of concern when the banks experienced losses, Yellen urged members of the U.S. House of Representatives to raise the federal debt ceiling without conditions. She warned that a default on US debt would cause an economic and financial catastrophe.
As you know, I've asked Congress to raise or suspend the debt limit. Since 1789, the United States has always paid its bills on time, and it must continue to do so. In my assessment and those of economists across the board, a default on our debt would trigger an economic and financial catastrophe.
The White House has said that it had faith and confidence in US financial regulators. Cecilia Rouse, who chairs the Council of Economic Advisors, said the US banking system was fundamentally stronger than it was during the 2008 financial crisis.
Our banking system is fundamentally different because of the changes that we put in place in 2008. For example, they have to hold more capital. They undergo stress tests. So we know that we had to build more resilience into our banking system, which allows it to withstand these kinds of shocks. So I do have faith that we have the tools for this sector and for our regulators to be able to absorb. But this is what we know today, but we do know that our banking system is in a fundamentally different place.
Sudden collapse of SVB prompted the global banking sector to shed billions in market value. Wall Street's indexes closed lower on Friday as investors ran for the exits as they stressed out about the health of US banks, overshadowing the February jobs report. S&P 500 lost 1.45%, while the Nasdaq Composite lost 1.76%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 1.07%. In spite of the pressure, investors believe that the banks are in a much better position than they had been previously.
Majority of banks will be okay. It's really specialized banks and banks that cater to the high net worth that have a little bit more concern. But this, at least so far, this is not 2008. Banks are in a much better position than they have been previously. Again, it's important to note this is not credit related. It's not like people are defaulted at a high rate. They're just taking out their money. So it's sort of a self-inflicted prophecy. If people weren't freaking out, it actually wouldn't be a problem. So it's sort of one of those interesting situations. Because they could just wait it out, right? The security portfolios are underwater, but if people didn't withdraw, it wouldn't matter. They would just wait until expiration, and then the bonds would be back to par and they would lose no money.
SVB was the United States' 16th largest bank with a total of 17 branches in California and Massachusetts. The bank had $209 billion in assets and $175.4 billion in deposits ahead of being shut down. The problem at SVB underscored how a campaign by the US Federal Reserve and other central banks to fight inflation by ending the era of cheap money is exposing vulnerabilities in the market. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, to get a perspective of what this means to the world, should the world be worried? Should politicians, who would be looking at this, especially between the Democrats and Republicans, how would they play this out? To get a perspective of all this, and should India too be concerned about this particular exposure that's taken place? Dr. Nilanjan Manik, senior economist, joining us this evening on News Connect. Let me welcome you. Let me begin by asking, an abrupt collapse of two US banks there. Should entrepreneurs and also politicians be worried about this?
Okay, let me give you the background as to what is happening. Let me step 3 years back when we have had COVID. At that point of time, what happened was the US government, they spent close to $1.5 trillion. Now, to put into perspective, the size of the Indian economy is $3 trillion. Almost half that amount the US government were spending to save the economy from COVID. And mind you, over in the US, what actually happens is you have a generous social security payment. So even if you are not working, what it implies is the people over there, they were getting money from the government. So there were no addition to the real sector of the economy. You are getting money from the government, which actually eventually led to inflation, which we have seen crossing almost 40 years high. Now that has led to the Fed as what we see at this point of time, in particular during the course of last year, increasing the Fed rate because their inflation rate in the US, it crossed 8% level, whereas the Fed, they wanted to keep the inflation level at 2 percentage point level. Now, because of that, over a period of time, in particular during the course of last year, what we have seen that the Fed continuously increasing the rate. Now, this has led to what we call the inverted yield curve. Inverted yield curve basically means your long-term bond yield is actually becoming less than the short-term bond yield. Now, this is kind of peculiar because if you as an investor want to put your money in bank, typically what you would expect is if you're, let's say, putting your money for 5 years or 4 years, the rate of return on your fixed deposit will be generally higher than what you would expect to get for 1 year. But when you have an inverted bond yield, basically it means that your short-term rate of interest is actually higher than the long-term rate of interest, which is a peculiar scenario because if I were to give you the data at this point of time, the long-term 10 years bond yield for the US economy is around 3.8 percentage point, whereas the short-term bond yield is around 4.8 percentage point. Now, what does that mean? It means that because now the rate of interest has gone up, the cost of capital has gone up. And because the cost of capital has gone up, what it means that the profitability, the present discounted value of future return from any business activity, it is going to go down because your rate of interest has gone up, which means the cost of capital has gone up, which also means the present discounted value of your future earning has also come down because your rate of interest, short-term rate of interest has gone up. Again, why the short-term rate of interest has gone up? Because US is facing inflation which has not happened over the last few decades. Now, in order to control that, Fed is increasing the rate of interest, and in doing so, the short-term rate is going up. Now, what we have seen yesterday with respect to this Silicon Valley Bank, they were actually lending money to the tech startups. Now, during the COVID times, what was happening, most of us were working online. And therefore, you see, all the tech companies, in particular Facebook or even in case of India, TCS, Infosys, their market share, their return actually went up because people were using online data for a bigger amount of time. But after COVID, after the economy opened up, people are not so much using the online data which they were using before. And because of that, we have also seen all the layoffs which were happening in the context of Google or in the context of Facebook, Metaverse, so on and so forth, which is basically suggesting that because the economy has opened up, people are now going from the online mode to the offline mode. Now, to put things into perspective, now what has happened in the context of SVP Bank, which is Silicon Valley Bank, they lost close to 1.75 billion US dollars. Now, to putting again into perspective, $1.75 billion is equivalent to almost 14,000 crore, lakh of crore rupees, which is actually more than the budgetary outlay which the Indian government is doing on account of building infrastructure. Because in the last budget, we have seen the finance minister allocated 10 lakh crore rupees. Now, why they actually made so much of loss? This is again to do with the short-term rise in the rate of interest, which kind of impacted the profitability of the tech startups, and therefore the valuation of the business for which SVP Bank has given money has come down. And because the valuation has come down in the book of account, the SVP, the Silicon Valley Bank, has made so much of losses. So just to tell you what is happening now, because you see that the rate of Fed is keeping on increasing the interest rate, and I don't think they are going to stop anytime soon, because even if you look into the job market data which came out yesterday, it is still showing strong. So in spite of the GDP not doing that great, because in the US, they also take into account consumer confidence index, as well as the job market data. So these other two factors are now showing strong because they have opened up the economy. People have started coming out for work. And because of this, the US economy is technically not into recession, because in the US, unlike in major other countries, they also take into account, in addition to the GDP growth numbers, few other factors, namely the consumer confidence index and the job market data.
Okay.
So because of that, we see that the Fed is again going to increase the rate of interest, which is indirectly going to hurt. Because if you think in a very simple term, if my short-term rate of interest is inching towards 6% or 5.5%, that means for a common people to take loan, I have to shell out almost 6 or 7 or 8%, which is kind of unheard in the U.S. economy. So I hope that the economy does not actually, because the Fed want to control inflation, they don't push the economy towards recession.
Okay. Dr. Banik, when one looks at, any kind of financial crisis that hits the market today, everyone goes into, referring to history mode and talks about the 2008 financial crisis. Do you see a likelihood of that getting repeated, or this seems to be not on the same lines?
Yeah, so one similarity between 2008 and what we are seeing right now is the inverted bond yield, something I mentioned, which is the long-term rate is lower than the short-term rate. But in the 2008, what happened, it actually originated from the real estate sector. And that type of thing, I don't think is going to happen at this point of time, because what is happening at this point of time, the increase in rate is happening because the US Fed is firefighting to stop the additional bout of inflation. Now, that has some implication for a growing, large economy like India, because as the US Fed increases the rate, typically what happens is the investor, the foreign institutional investor, they tend to take money away from the emerging economy to the more developed countries like North American economy, or for that matter, European economy. Now, that is a cause of concern, because if RBI also do not increase the interest rate in tandem to what the Fed is doing, we are going to settle down for a depreciating rupee, which is not a good news for a country like India, because that also have an indirect impact on our inflation.
Okay, Dr. Banik, the collapse of the Silicon Valley, and you made a mention about Indian startups too that have benefited immensely from it. So is there a cause of concern, especially for Indian startups, looking at the way ahead?
In a way, yes, because now our startup system has become very much matured. We are strong, almost 3 lakh crore rupees. And in the case of startup, it has more to do with the business model. Now, the thing which has happened in the context of the US, as I said, that this SVB bank, they were lending to the tech type of startups. But in India, you see a majority of the startup are also operating in the non-tech domain. For instance, in the healthcare sector, in the recreation sector, in the hotel sector, in the transport sector. So, which I think is is going to put our startup system more resilient. But having said that, my only worry is if the rate of interest keep on rising in the developed countries, in particular in the US, people are going to actually take away money from developing countries, even though it's a large, fastest growing economy. You are going to see the foreign institutional investor taking away money from economies like India, which may sound a bad news for a startup like in India.
Okay, the SVB collapse came about, roughly around Friday afternoon, especially in the Indian markets. We didn't see much of burn in the Indian markets there on Friday. But do you see the likelihood of this being more a sentimental story is how the Indian markets would react? Or would you see the Indian markets there getting into a bear grip? There on coming week?
No, in a way we have seen the Indian stock market. If you look into the dollar return, because there is 2 ways to look into the stock market return. One is the rupee return, the other is the dollar return. Now, if I'm looking into the dollar index return for the Indian stock market, we are actually have not performed well since last 1.5 years. In fact, I was just looking at the data. Since 2000, we are now in 2023. Since July of 2021, when our market reached 18,000 Nifty, I'm talking about, right now, even after 1.5 years, we are again in the territory between 16,000 to 18,000. So in a way, the Indian investor, they have lost their money, and in particular, if you're indexing that, and our rupee has also depreciated. So if I look into in the US dollar term, we have lost our money, and for the last 1.5 years, the FIIs, they were continuously selling in the Indian market. Probably they have seen this thing coming, because of which they have become a little bit cautious. But on an optimistic note, the 2/3 of the India's GDP is actually run by the domestic economy, run by the domestic demand, which is basically to say that our economy is resilient no matter what happens elsewhere in the world. And Indian economy, although the stock market is seeing a little bit of fall, but in the near future term, which is within a year from now, I think we will be back to 18,000 plus level.
Okay, when one looks at especially the Indian markets, you made a mention about high interest rates or the high interest rate regime that's come into play. But when one looks at the Indian banks and the numbers that they have shown, especially in Q3, the numbers seem to be pretty positive. So in that context, how do you see this? On one end, there is a fear that the hawkish approach that Jeremy Powell is making is having a deep impact across the globe. But on the reversal side, banks seem to be showing pretty strong numbers, especially with the high interest rates that have been maintained.
So you also have to recognize one thing, which is the digitization which is happening in the context of Indian economy. Now, if you want to see what has happened as a percentage of financial transaction, as a percentage of GDP since 2012, we have quadrupled in terms of the number of transactions which is happening through either UPI, either PhonePe or GPay of the world. So what basically it means that because you have so much of digitization happening in India, the rural market, the small MSME sector, they are getting increasingly involved in formal business. And that has led to the bank doing a better, more risk-averse type of business, because all these sectors which were outside the ambit of the formal banking system, thanks to our digital economy, thanks to our UPI system in place, they are now actually coming under the ambit of the real economy. And that is creating an economy which is actually outside any type of shocks which is happening in the developed countries. So in that way, I think Indian banking sector is much more resilient, and Indian banking sector will continue to do well more and more as we bring this sector, which were the MSME and the rural sector, which were earlier the outside the ambit of the formal financial system.
One final word before I let you go. A bank is in trouble. Investors start fearing, or, they get perturbed with the developments that happen around them. But somewhere deep down, looking at it from an investor point of view, is there cause of concern for an investor when he looks at his portfolio with this particular development that's taken place?
So when you are talking of the investor, there are two types of investor. The first is whether I'm investing in the stock market. And the second type of investor is whether I'm investing in the real sector of the economy.
Okay.
Now, what I've mentioned a few minutes back, in India, 2/3 of our GDP is actually driven by the domestic demand. And most part of it has to do with the non-tradable services sector like healthcare, education, transport, logistics, so on and so forth. Now, the Indian economy is doing very well in terms of the growth, and we have seen it is the fastest growing large economy in the world. So if I were to invest in startups which are operating in the Indian ecosystem, as an investor, I will put my money. But if I'm trying to be a punter, want to make quick money from the stock market, I rather shy away from that activity for the time being. But I still believe within 1 year from now, the Nifty is going to cross 18,000 marks.
Okay, we'll leave it on that point of optimism that you put together there. Dr. Nilanjan Manika, thank you and appreciate you joining us, explaining it threadbare to our audience on what this particular Silicon Valley Bank and the closure of it means there for the rest of the world. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Well, moving forward, Union Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal attended the closing ceremony of the 18th India-Australia Joint Ministerial Commission today. Union Minister Goyal said that India currently has $30 billion of trade with Australia, and in the next 5 years, the target will be $100 billion between the two economies.
Ekta in India translates in Hindi to unity. So it in a way signifies the great unity of interests, the unity of thinking, and the unity of art, culture, the tremendous relations that we have amongst our people, our tourism, our Bollywood. The officials had kept a target of $45 or $50 billion in the next 5 years. Both Minister Farrer and I have expressed our unhappiness to the trade negotiators and the teams, and we do hope we will be much more ambitious and aim for $100 billion trade between these two economies.
Union Minister Goyal also said that a number of contemporary issues were discussed with his Australian counterpart Don Farrell in the 18th Joint Ministerial Commission in New Delhi.
18th India-Australia Joint Ministerial Commission, in which a very vast majority of subjects were discussed. We also, during this visit, apart from the wonderful discussions, this Australia-India CEO Forum has been held, I think, after about 40 years, and truly gives energy to this engagement, to our efforts to add greater momentum and economic engagement between Australia and India.
Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Singh Thakur said that Y20 consultation theme holds great significance at a time when the world is grappling with complex challenges. He was speaking at the inaugural session of the Y20 consultation in Pune's Symbiosis University.
The Y20 Summit 2023 has identified 5 key themes that will serve as guiding light for our youth. These themes have been carefully selected to empower young people to create, collaborate, and contribute to the G20's.
Mentioning Ukraine-Russia conflict, COVID crisis, recent Taliban crisis among others, the Union Minister said Y20 consultations has raised concern about the regional and global security and highlighted the urgent need for effective collaboration and coordinated action to address such issues.
The crisis which the humanity, especially our generation, has faced in the last couple of years, COVID-19 pandemic. Even when the developed countries shirked away from their responsibilities and they was not ready to come forward and help, it was India. On one hand, we have administered more than 2.2 billion vaccines free of cost in India, at the same time provided medicines and vaccine to more than 150 countries across the world.
Well, for more on the story, Shama Mishra, correspondent tracking that for us, joining us this afternoon from Pune. Good afternoon, Shama there. Good to see you. Looking at, especially the complex global challenges that we face. On one end, we are talking about Russia-Ukraine crisis. On the other hand, natural calamities world over that we see. How does one get the balance, and how does the youth have a role to play in all that's simmering there across the world?
Well, Anil, we always say that, youth is the future leaders, youth are the future leaders of tomorrow. But today, the Union Minister, Anurag Thakur, he emphasized that they are not just the future leaders of tomorrow, but they are of the present as well, now and here. So they just don't have to build the future, they also have to care of the present. That said, they also have to care about the environment. Since India has a lot of emphasis going on life, which is the lifestyle for environment, climate action is one major part over here. So there are 2 themes in this Y20 consultation, and then there are 5 sub-themes. Climate action is one of them, which also highlighted the Ladakh's situation where the glacier water is melting and how it is causing problems because of the heavy tourists that are flocking in that region, in the Himalayan region. So one thing that came out from that session, that whatever happens in Himalaya, whatever happens in the Himalayan range will affect the entire world, and that one message was not just related for the dedicated to the Himalayan thing, but it was related to every problem or every solution that we have today. Whatever happens in one particular region, like we are saying about the conflicts going on between Russia and Ukraine, that is affecting and impacting the entire world. Same way COVID impacted the entire world. So you have to have solutions which are ready, and the solutions would be coming out. There are many a times when a rural guy or a rural youth, they have solutions, but they are not able to make them reach at a platform where these suggestions or the recommendations could be heard. Y20 is that exact platform where not just from the urban areas youth, but the rural youth as well would be participating, and they are sharing their suggestions, they are sharing their recommendations. So these sessions that are happening, already 4 sessions have been done. So climate change is already done, gender conflict is done. So gender conflict also plays an important role, and one strong point that came out from this session is that if you want to have change for the women, make women leaders, put women in the leadership position more. Don't make decisions for them. No one else can make decisions for them. So that was one important point that came out from there. So like I was saying, that Y20 is a platform where the youth from a rural area who is using cow dung for their day-to-day life, they can tell you how you can save the environment. That can actually be put up on a global platform, and then the world over people can actually utilize this. So all these sessions that are happening today, they have these speakers who are coming from various backgrounds, who are coming, they have done miraculously, they have utilized these natural resources that could be otherwise not be thought of. They are making progress in the women-led conflict environment, and also about the other education reforms, legal reforms. So they are doing all kind of works, and that way they've come here. We also have Dr. Vidya, who is the Pro-Chancellor of Symbiosis University. Welcome to DD India, ma'am. Like I was already mentioning, there are 5 themes, 5 sub-themes and 2 themes. A lot of good speakers have already spoken about what consultations could be taken to the global platform. What do you make of the how much ever session we've had till now?
So I think it's been a great time here for the whole day, because young people have come up with wonderful ideas, and you have people from all across the world, from Nigeria to Argentina to different parts of India. Someone has come from Northeast, someone has come from Kerala, and of course people from Maharashtra and others. So I'm very excited, because it's going to be really the young people's voice that is going to be considered, and topics that relate to the present times. Peace building and reconciliation is something that we all now want it to happen. What we are seeing geopolitically in different corners of the world, I think these young people now feel that they can really voice their opinion to not have such things happen. And therefore I think these consultations at Symbiosis, which is I would say a multidisciplinary consultation, a multi-regional consultation that has happened, will certainly find its way to the final consultations of G20 in Delhi. I only hope that some of these consultations not just remain on paper, but some of these students, more specifically the young people who have given suggestions, are invited along with the top brass in Delhi, so that they can actually be heard.
Also, there was a mobile filmmaking workshop for the rural women. I'll just take a last small one, Anil.
Yeah.
So they have also learned, they've gotten their certificates. What's the way ahead for now?
That was an amazing exercise and workshop being done for the rural women. In fact, there were rural girls who were studying it in undergraduate programs, and I think this mobile filmmaking workshop They found it very exciting, but they also felt that this would probably help them create some kind of job startups, or they would be able to help other startups. They would be socially media savvy, and I think this has given them a great confidence, you know. So I think it's wonderful. What we plan at Symbiosis is to take this workshop ahead into a certificate course, and we've told all these girls that you can come back because we have a media school and we have wonderful studios. So we will convert this into a certificate and maybe then a diploma.
Shama, one
Thank
quick
you very much for talking to us.
Shama, one
So
quick
that was,
word before you let the guest
yes,
go
yes,
there.
yes.
You
Ma'am,
know,
ma'am.
one quick word from the guest before you let her go. You know, the minister spoke about infodemic. You know, of misinformation that's taking place across the world, which has killed thousands of people. You know, it's a university which caters to almost 2 lakh students there. The city of Pune caters to almost 2 lakh students. So how difficult or how tough was the face of infodemic a college or a university like Symbiosis faced?
Ma'am, my question is, you know, the minister also spoke about the infodemic, which is also posing a major threat. So the Symbiosis Institute or the bouquet of Symbiosis, which is having so many students, how do you all face a problem like infodemic?
So I think information used for the right things is what we teach our students, whether it's media students or law or management or, you know, for that matter, any young student, because it's, see, social media can be used to your advantage and it can just be at your disadvantage also. So I think universities and colleges are the right institutions to teach students the application of knowledge and the right application of knowledge, and that's what we do here. So I'm really not scared of you know, a pandemic of information at all.
All right, so that's the confidence level. When you teach the right thing, when you teach the right quality to students, you are sure of that there will be no infodemic here, at least in Symbiosis. Anil.
Well, that's the advantage there. The Symbiosis too believes in that that promise of G20 presidency of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Thank you and appreciate you joining us this evening here all the way from Pune. Well, time now to shift focus as part of the G20 celebrations happening across the country. The New Delhi Municipal Corporation has organized various events in the last couple of months, namely in New Delhi, like the Tulip Festival and the Music in the Park. And this time around, NDMC has organized a 2-day G20 Flower Festival. Let's take a look at this report.
Union Minister Bhupendra Yadav inaugurated the G20 Flower Festival organized in Central Park at Connaught Place in New Delhi. This flower festival is an attempt to display different flowers and displays to showcase the diversity and to ensure that people participate in large numbers, enjoy and experience the nature in full bloom.
दिल्ली का जो ये मौसम है, इस मौसम में नए फ्लावर्स आते ही हैं, तो ये मौसम बहुत अच्छा है और दिल्ली में तो फूलों वालों की सैर का एक सितंबर में एनुअल फेस्टिवल भी रहता है, तो इस शहरों को फूलों से बहुत प्यार है.
The theme of the flower festival is the vibrancy of colorful flowers. Some G20 members have also put up displays for showcasing the vibrancy of their motherland, while tourists are also enjoying.
We are showcasing the traditional beauty of Japan and the very the latest technology of Japanese industry. So it is an airborne size.
In the flower festival, there is a display of potted plants, colorful vibrant flowers like dahlias, petunias, marigolds, salvia, pansy and more. Visitors are also enjoying the beautiful displays.
We're from England, near London. So, yeah, we're just visiting Delhi for a couple of days. And the flowers are beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
We're from England, just visiting Delhi briefly. And we're delighted to be able to see this festival. It's beautiful and it's a lovely introduction to a lovely city.
Other attractions of the event are tray landscape, different floral figures, floral boards, terrarium, and display of photographs of different items. Meghna Dev's report, DD India.
Well, India's industrial production growth perked slightly up to 5.2% in Jan from 4.7% in December last year, continuing its expansion for the third consecutive month. Industrial growth as per the Index of Industrial Production, that's IIP, in December has been revised up to 4.7% from 4.3%. Data from the industry showed for the first 10 months of 2022-23, IIP growth was 5.4% down from 13.7% in the corresponding year of 21-22. The improvement in industrial growth in January was expected with data released on Feb 28, showing India's 8 core sector grew by 7.8% in January, up from 7% in December. Shifting to international stories, emergency services in Australia's Queensland state evacuated residents to higher grounds on Saturday as record-breaking floods sparked by heavy rain lashed the region's northwest. 53 residents of the isolated Gulf of Carpentaria town of Bouquet Town, about 2,115 kilometers northwest to the state capital Brisbane, have been evacuated since heavy rain triggered floods earlier this week. Around 100 residents remained in the Gulf County town, with police urging a full evacuation on Saturday. The nation's weather forecaster predicted river levels in the area to peak on Sunday, and police are coordinating the evacuation via helicopter to the mining town of Mount Isa. The emergency comes after frequent flooding in Australia's east over the last 2 years due to a multi-year La Nina weather event, including once-in-a-century floods that hits remote areas in the neighboring Northern Territory in Jan. Time to take a quick update on weather from across the globe.
The disastrous consequences of climate change have been inflicting heavy losses across the world, walloping the United States, the UK, France, Peru and South Africa the hardest. In the US, after a series of unrelenting winter storms, California is forecast to see another state of grueling weather, including heavy rain and snow to last through the weekend. As on Friday morning, most of California's more than 39 million residents were under a weather warning or advisory, and dozens of counties were under a state of emergency. The number of power outages was also rising. President Joe Biden has ordered federal assistance to help local, tribal and state officials respond to the severe weather. Wintry conditions will be slowly easing their grip on most parts of the UK over the weekend, but a return to colder conditions for many is likely in the early part of next week. The low-pressure system, named Storm Larissa by France, has moved across a swath of England and has brought significant snowfall to some parts. Larissa is now gradually pulling away into northern Europe, encouraging a feed of colder air and clearer conditions across many areas of the UK. However, these clearer skies will bring further wintry hazards, with widespread frost and ice occurring with sub-zero temperatures for many. In South Africa, tropical storm Freddy is due to hit the coast again. According to World Met Organization, one of the strongest storms ever recorded in the southern hemisphere, Freddy may also have broken the record for the longest-lasting tropical cyclone. The country's National Disaster Management Agency said that as many as 565,000 people could be at risk in Mozambique this time, with the province of Zambezia expected to be the hardest hit. The storm is likely to cause extreme rainfall over large parts of Mozambique, as well as northeastern Zimbabwe, southeast Zambia and Malawi. In Peru, Cyclone Yaku brought heavy rains and devastation in the northern part, displacing and isolating hundreds of families. Rains caused rivers to overflow and left residents of towns such as Lambeque, Tumbes and Piura to sort flooded streets. According to local media, 5 people are missing and 6 dead. Peru's National Civil Defense Institute warned of landslide risks in 586 districts in northern coast. Cyclone Yaku is expected to contribute to the intensification of rains in La Libertad, Lima and Ancash in the coming days. In Brazil, deforestation in Amazon rainforests rose in February to the highest level on record for the month. Preliminary official data shows. The data highlighted challenges the new government has been facing to stop the destruction. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva pledged to end illegal logging after years of surging deforestation under his predecessor, Jair Bolsonaro. Experts and environmental officials have warned it could take years to significantly lower deforestation after Bolsonaro cut funding and staff at key agencies. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, on to sports. First up, that ongoing fourth and final test match in the India-Australia Border Gavaskar Trophy in Ahmedabad. On day 3 of the Ahmedabad test, Shubman Gill scored 100 of 194 deliveries, and when reports last came in, India were 282 for the loss of 3 wickets. Virat Kohli unbeaten on 55, Ravindra Jadeja giving him good company, unbeaten on 13. India still trail Australia a score of 480 in the first innings by 198 runs. And to join us more on that particular story is Narayan, tracking the test match for us, joining us this evening. Narayan, one takes a look at this particular test match. Do you see all likelihood of a draw coming out of this test in Ahmedabad?
Is going on. It is looking like that it may be a draw, but we don't know how pitch will behave on day 4, because if the bowlers getting some assistance from the pitch, and it could be a different, because in that case only 2 days will be left. Today is the day 3, and it remains to be seen how the pitch will behave on day 4 and day 5. If right now India is if we can say that they have made a good start, the kind of innings that Shubman Gill played, and right now Kohli also crossed his 50-run mark, and he has scored 4,000 runs in the test matches in India. So all in all, if from this position, if they go for a aggressive, takes an aggressive approach, and they play a baseball type of cricket,
Narayan.
Definitely.
Narayan, when one looks at the strategy that Team India is doing, sending in a Ravindra Jadeja over a settled Shreyas Iyer who's there waiting at number 5 to come in, what's the sense that you're trying to make of this move from the dressing room?
If you take over Ravindra Jadeja, we have seen in the
because
past,
he's never got success there at number 5. That's the reason I'm asking you.
If we can say that considering that this test series, the way he batted, he saved the matches for India. If you take a look the previous matches where India's top order failed, then only our lower middle order came to the party and scored runs for India and saved the initial 2 test matches for India. And we know the kind of performance Ravindra Jadeja got for India in that 2 test matches. So they are hoping that if he plays a big shot and he can change the momentum of the match. Right now, if India wants a result here, they have to go for the big shot, aggressive kind of cricket, a baseball type of cricket, the kind of cricket England plays. They always go for the result. So here only India, if today, if Ravindra Jadeja towards the end of the match plays a big shot and reduce the deficit, it could be a different ball game on it.
Okay, one final word. When one looks at the way Indians have scored on this particular day in cricket, 247 runs if 2 overs action left, and 247 runs if India scores losing 3 wickets. Do you somewhere see the option that the dressing room is looking at? Maybe India out-batting Australia and then putting something on board and putting maybe Australia in pressure on day 5 of this test?
Definitely, this could be the strategy for the Indian team, because if this series is also crucial for the World Championship. If India wins this test match, definitely automatically they will qualify for that coveted tournament, and otherwise they would have to, if India somehow they are not doing well and loses this match, they have to wait for the result of the New Zealand versus Sri Lanka series. But right now, still India is in driver's seat in this test match, considering the fact that how the wicket behaves on day 4 and what kind of approach the Indian batsman takes forward, because a batting line is left. If Kohli is still playing there, if Jadeja and they go for the big shots, definitely if they take a lead of 100 runs in this test match on the day 5, what happens? Nobody knows how the pitch behaves, because still this still is a flat wicket and there is no assistance for bowlers. Australia tried everything. Their star bowler Mitchell Starc is bowling around the wicket, putting the short balls to Indians, and 7 fielders are on leg side and they are doing leg side bowling. So they did everything, but still they could not manage to take many wickets of the Indian team.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate you joining us. But clearly the new ball being taken by Australia, so it's a double-edged sword. Remember, India took the new ball and paid a huge price with a lot of runs being leaked. Can India do the same and make that new ball decision by Australia count by scoring quickly on day 4? We'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate you joining us. Well, that's it in this edition of News Connect. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Take care.
As the day unfolds and news and events take shape, we get you complete coverage of every news breaking in, tracking new developments as they happen. Midday Prime English, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. on DD India. Get in-depth analysis of the important news of the day. Spotlight on day's newsmakers. Expert comments to dissect the news. Get the finer points of the matter. Watch Dateline 5 p.m. on weekdays on DD India. The changing world of news. Headlines that you wake up to. News that shapes your day. అర్హులందరూ వ్యాక్సిన్ వేయించుకోవాలి. నిబంధనలు పాటిద్దాం, కరోనాని జయిద్దాం. ఇక ఈనాటి వార్తల్లోని ముఖ్యాంశాలు. స్కిల్ ఇండియా మిషన్, కౌశల్ వికాస్ కేంద్రాల ద్వారా కోట్లాది మంది యువతలో నైపుణ్యాలను పెంపొందించేందుకు కృషి చేస్తున్నామన్న ప్రధాని. పీఎం విశ్వకర్మ కౌశల్ సమ్మాన్ పై పోస్ట్ బడ్జెట్ వెబినార్లో ప్రసంగించిన మోదీ, ప్రభుత్వ పథకాలతో యువత ఉద్యోగ అవకాశాలు పొందుతున్నారని వెల్లడి. ఢిల్లీ మద్యం కుంభకోణం కేసులో ఈడీ ముందు హాజరైన బీఆర్ఎస్ ఎమ్మెల్సీ కవిత, కొనసాగుతున్న విచారణ, ఈడీ కార్యాలయం ఎదుట కట్టుదిట్టమైన భద్రతా ఏర్పాట్లు. రాష్ట్రంలో ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికలకు ముగిసిన ప్రచారం, 13న పోలింగ్, 16న ఓట్ల లెక్కింపు. ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికలపై రాష్ట్ర ప్రజలకు టీడీపీ అధినేత బహిరంగ లేఖ. వైసీపీ పాలనలో ప్రజాస్వామ్యం నిరంతరం దాడికి గురవుతుందన్న చంద్రబాబు, నకిలీ ఓట్ల అంశంపై చర్యలు తీసుకోవాలని ఈసీకి లేఖ రాసినట్లు వెల్లడి. అహ్మదాబాద్లో శతకంతో అదరగొట్టిన శుభ్మన్ గిల్, 4వ టెస్టులో ధీటుగా జవాబిస్తున్న టీమిండియా. ఇక వార్తల్లోని వివరాలు. స్కిల్ ఇండియా మిషన్, కౌశల్ వికాస్ కేంద్రాల ద్వారా కోట్లాది మంది యువతలో నైపుణ్యాలను పెంపొందించేందుకు ప్రభుత్వం కృషి చేస్తోందని ప్రధానమంత్రి నరేంద్ర మోదీ అన్నారు. పోస్ట్ బడ్జెట్ వెబినార్లో భాగంగా ప్రధానమంత్రి నరేంద్ర మోదీ పీఎం విశ్వకర్మ కౌశల్ సమ్మాన్ పై ఈరోజు ప్రసంగించారు. స్కిల్ ఇండియా మిషన్, పీఎం విశ్వకర్మ యోజన పథకాల ద్వారా దేశవ్యాప్తంగా చేతి వృత్తిదారుల నైపుణ్యాలను మరింత మెరుగుపరిచి రుణాలను అందించడంతో పాటు వారు తయారు చేసిన ఉత్పత్తులకు తగిన మార్కెటింగ్, బ్రాండింగ్ కల్పిస్తున్నామన్నారు. దీని ఫలితాలను కోట్లాది మంది పొందగలుగుతున్నారని తెలిపారు. ప్రధానమంత్రి విశ్వకర్మ పథకం యొక్క లక్ష్యం సాంప్రదాయ కళాకారులు, హస్త కళాకారుల గొప్ప సాంప్రదాయాన్ని పరిరక్షించడమే కాకుండా వారిని అభివృద్ధి చేయడం, వారి అవసరాలకు అనుగుణంగా నైపుణ్య మౌలిక సదుపాయాల వ్యవస్థను పునరుద్ధరిస్తున్నామన్నారు.
देने का काम किया है। कौशल जैसे क्षेत्र में हम जितना स्पेसिफिक होंगे, जितनी टारगेटेड अप्रोच होगी, उतने ही बेहतर परिणाम मिलेंगे। विश्वकर्मा योजना के माध्यम से करोड़ों लोगों की बड़ी मदद होने जा रही है। इस योजना के द्वारा केंद्र सरकार हर विश्वकर्मा साथी को होलिस्टिक इंस्टीट्यूशनल सपोर्ट प्रदान करेगी। विश्वकर्मा साथियों को आसानी से लोन मिले, उनका कौशल बढ़े, उन्हें हर तरह का टेक्निकल सपोर्ट मिले, ये सब सुनिश्चित किया जाएगा। इसके अलावा डिजिटल एम्पावरमेंट, ब्रांड प्रमोशन और उत्पादों के बाजार तक पहुंच बनाने की व्यवस्था भी की जाएगी। हमारा उद्देश्य आज के विश्वकर्मा साथियों को कल का बड़ा एंटरप्रेन्योर बनाने का है। इसके लिए उनके बिजनेस मॉडल में स्थायित्व जरूरी है। इसे ध्यान में रखते हुए हम उनके बनाए प्रोडक्ट को बेहतर बनाने, आकर्षक डिजाइनिंग, पैकेजिंग और ब्रांडिंग पर भी काम कर रहे हैं। इसमें ग्राहकों की भी जरूरतों का भी ध्यान रखा जा रहा है। हमारी नजर सिर्फ स्थानीय बाजार पर ही नहीं है, बल्कि हम ग्लोबल मार्केट को भी टारगेट कर रहे हैं।
బ్రాడ్ గేజ్ నెట్వర్క్ విద్యుదీకరణలో భారత రైల్వే ఓ అరుదైన ఘనత సాధించింది. 3,825 కిలోమీటర్ల బ్రాడ్ గేజ్ మార్గాన్ని 100% విద్యుదీకరణతో మైలురాయిని అందుకుంది. చివరగా షోలాపూర్ డివిజన్లోని 52 కిలోమీటర్ల ఔసా రోడ్ లాతూర్ మార్గంలో ఈ ఏడాది ఫిబ్రవరి 23తో పూర్తిస్థాయి విద్యుదీకరణ పూర్తయిందని రైల్వే శాఖ ఓ ప్రకటనలో తెలిపింది. ఈ ఘనతను ప్రధానమంత్రి నరేంద్ర మోదీ అభినందించారు. బ్రాడ్ గేజ్ విద్యుదీకరణతో సుమారు 5 లక్షల టన్నుల కర్బన ఉద్గారాలను అరికట్టడంతో పాటు ఇంధన ఆదాకు ఎంతో దోహదపడుతుందని తెలిపారు. ఢిల్లీ మద్యం కుంభకోణం కేసులో భారతీయ రాష్ట్ర సమితి ఎమ్మెల్సీ కల్వకుంట్ల కవితను ఎన్ఫోర్స్మెంట్ డైరెక్టరేట్ సుదీర్ఘంగా విచారించింది. ఢిల్లీలోని ఈడీ కేంద్ర కార్యాలయంలో మధ్యాహ్నం నుండి ఈ విచారణను ప్రారంభించింది. సుదీర్ఘంగా సాగిన ప్రశ్నావళిపై కవిత ఇచ్చిన వాంగ్మూలాన్ని ఈడీ అధికారులు రికార్డు చేస్తున్నారు. ఓ స్పిరిట్స్ కంపెనీలో వాటాలతో పాటు 100 కోట్ల రూపాయల ముడుపుల వ్యవహారంపై ఈడీ ఆరా తీస్తోంది. కవిత విచారణ నేపథ్యంలో ఈడీ కేంద్ర కార్యాలయం పరిసరాల్లో భద్రతను కట్టుదిట్టం చేశారు. ఎలాంటి అవాంఛనీయ ఘటనలు చోటు చేసుకోకుండా ఎక్కడికక్కడ బారికేడ్లను ఏర్పాటు చేశారు. రాష్ట్ర వ్యాప్తంగా ఎల్లుండి నుండి జరగనున్న ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికల పోలింగుకు ప్రచార గడువు ఈ సాయంత్రంతో ముగిసింది. ఎల్లుండి ఉదయం 8 గంటల నుండి సాయంత్రం 4 గంటల వరకు పోలింగ్ నిర్వహిస్తారు. 16వ తేదీన ఓట్ల లెక్కింపు చేపడతారు. ప్రకాశం, నెల్లూరు, చిత్తూరు పట్టభద్రుల ఎమ్మెల్సీ స్థానం, కడప, అనంతపురం, కర్నూలు పట్టభద్రుల ఎమ్మెల్సీ స్థానం, శ్రీకాకుళం, విజయనగరం, విశాఖ పట్టభద్రుల ఎమ్మెల్సీ స్థానం, ప్రకాశం, నెల్లూరు, చిత్తూరు ఉపాధ్యాయ ఎమ్మెల్సీ స్థానం, కడప, అనంతపురం, కర్నూలు ఉపాధ్యాయ ఎమ్మెల్సీ స్థానాలకు ఎన్నికలు జరగనున్నాయి. మొత్తం 3 పట్టభద్రులు, 2 ఉపాధ్యాయ ఎమ్మెల్సీ స్థానాలకు ఎన్నికలు జరగనున్నాయి. ఇందుకోసం అధికారులు ఇప్పటికే ఏర్పాట్లను పూర్తి చేశారు. రాష్ట్రంలో వైఎస్ఆర్సీపీ అధికారంలోకి వచ్చిన అనంతరం ప్రజాస్వామ్యం నిరంతర దాడికి గురవుతూ వస్తోందని తెలుగుదేశం పార్టీ అధినేత చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు రాష్ట్ర ప్రజలకు బహిరంగ లేఖ రాశారు. వైఎస్ జగన్మోహన్ రెడ్డి కనుసన్నల్లో అధికార పార్టీ అన్ని అడ్డదారులు తొక్కుతోందని, ప్రజాస్వామ్యానికి తీవ్ర విఘాతంగా మారిన పరిణామాలపై ప్రజలకు, ఓటర్లకు వాస్తవాలు తెలియజేసేందుకు బహిరంగ లేఖ రాస్తున్నట్లు పేర్కొన్నారు. తూర్పు రాయలసీమ పట్టభద్రుల నియోజకవర్గంలోని ఒక్క తిరుపతి నగరంలోనే 7,000కు పైగా దొంగ ఓట్లు నమోదయ్యాయని, ఈ అంశంపై రాష్ట్ర ఎన్నికల ప్రధాన అధికారి కేంద్ర ఎన్నికల కమిషన్కు ఆధారాలతో సహా పంపి చర్యలు తీసుకోవాలని ఇప్పటికే కోరినట్లు తెలిపారు. శాసనమండలి ఎన్నికల్లో వైసీపీ ప్రభుత్వం ముందుగానే ఓటమిని అంగీకరించినట్లయిందని బీజేపీ రాష్ట్ర అధ్యక్షులు సోము వీర్రాజు అన్నారు. అమరావతి రాజధాని నిర్మాణానికి, పేదల గృహ నిర్మాణానికి కేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వం నిధులు మంజూరు చేసినా రాష్ట్రంలో అభివృద్ధి మాత్రం శూన్యమన్నారు. జనసేనతో పొత్తు కొనసాగుతుందన్నారు.
రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వం అధికార పార్టీ ఓటమిని ముందస్తుగానే అంగీకరించినట్లుగా కనబడుతుంది. రాష్ట్ర వ్యాప్తంగా అనేక చోట్ల 10వ తరగతి ఇంటర్మీడియట్ వారిని విచ్చలవిడిగా ఓట్లని నమోదు చేయడం, చాలా ప్రాంతాల్లో టీచర్స్ కి డబ్బులు ఇచ్చే ప్రయత్నం, విశాఖపట్నం లాంటి ప్రాంతంలో వెండి కాయిన్స్ ని కూడా ఇచ్చే ప్రయత్నం చేస్తున్నట్లుగా సమాచారం ఉంది. గ్రాడ్యుయేట్స్ కాన్స్టిట్యున్సీ కానీ, టీచర్స్ కానీ గతంలో ప్రభుత్వాలు వీటిని పెద్దలకి వదిలి వాళ్ళ ప్రభుత్వాలు నడిపేవారు. ఏదైతే పెద్దల సభ అంటున్నామో దాంట్లో కూడా రాజకీయాలను చొప్పించడం, పూర్తిగా రాజకీయ వైఖరులతో వాటికున్న గౌరవాన్ని తగ్గించేటువంటి పరిస్థితి జగన్మోహన్ రెడ్డి గారు తీసుకొచ్చారు. ఇది చాలా ప్రజాస్వామ్యానికి గొడ్డల పెట్టు లాంటి వైఖరి. రాజకీయంగా పోటీ చేస్తే తప్పు లేదు. రాజకీయ పార్టీ అభ్యర్థులు నిలబడినప్పటికి కూడా ఈ సభల్లో రాజకీయ పార్టీ గుర్తులు లేవు. దాన్ని గమనించాలి ఈ ముఖ్యమంత్రి.
ప్రధాని మోదీతో తెలంగాణ ముఖ్యమంత్రి ఏ అంశంలోనూ పోటీ పడలేరని భారతీయ జనతా పార్టీ జాతీయ ప్రధాన కార్యదర్శి సత్యకుమార్ అన్నారు. ఒంగోలులో ఆయన మీడియాతో మాట్లాడుతూ 17 సీట్లున్న కేసీఆర్ ప్రధానమంత్రి కావాలని పగటి కలలు కంటున్నారని, ఇప్పటికైనా వాస్తవాలు గుర్తించి ముందు రాష్ట్ర అభివృద్ధికి కృషి చేయాలన్నారు. ఎంతో ముందు చూపుతో నరేంద్ర మోదీ దేశాన్ని అగ్రప్రధాన నిలుపుతున్నారని పేర్కొన్నారు.
17 స్థానాలున్న రాష్ట్రం, లోక్సభ స్థానాలున్న రాష్ట్రం తెలంగాణ. దాంట్లో ఆయన కలలు కంటున్నారు. ఆయన దేశంలో 543 పార్లమెంటు స్థానాలు, 2 నామినేటెడ్ స్థానాలు ఉన్న విషయం మర్చిపోయి, అంటే మన రాష్ట్రంలో కూడా ఒక వ్యక్తి తిరుగుతుంటాడు ఇట్లే. అది ఎలా ఉందంటే, ఆయన కేఏ పాలని ఆయన నేను తెలంగాణలో ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్లో ప్రభుత్వం తెచ్చేస్తున్నా, ఇప్పుడే మళ్ళీ తర్వాత అమెరికాలో కూడా పోటీ చేస్తున్నా అంటున్నాడు. అది ఏమన్నా ఈ మధ్య పరిణామాలతో పాపం షాక్ అయ్యి ఆ రకమైన వ్యాఖ్యలు చేస్తున్నారేమో బీఆర్ఎస్ పార్టీ నాయకులు, కేసీఆర్ గారు, కేటీఆర్ గారు, నాకు తెలియదు. కానీ దొంగ దొరికిపోతున్నప్పుడు రకరకాల విన్యాసాలు వేస్తూ ఉంటారు. తప్పదు, జైలుకు పోతున్న భవిష్యత్తు కనిపిస్తుంది, కటకటాలు లెక్క పెట్టాల్సిన పరిస్థితి ఉంది. అక్కడితో ఆగదు, ఇంకో చోటికి బొలుతుంది, ఇంకో చోటికి వెళ్తుంది. భవిష్యత్తు పాపం మీ సంపాదించిన దోచుకున్న ప్రజల డబ్బు 1,00,000 కోట్లు ఏం చేయాలా, ఎవరికి అప్పచెప్పాలా తెలియని పరిస్థితుల్లో వాళ్ళు కొట్టుమిట్టాడుతున్నారు. అందుకోసం ఇటువంటి వ్యాఖ్యలు చేస్తున్నారు.
ఇప్పుడు ఒక చిన్న విరామం.
సిగ్గెందుకు పడుతున్నావు? గజ్జి, తామర, దురద అందరికీ వస్తాయి. జాలిం లోషన్ నాకు నానమిచ్చింది. చర్మ వ్యాధులకు అద్భుత పరిష్కారం అంది. జాలిం లోషన్ పురాతన యోధుడు, పురాతనమైందే మెరుగైంది. జాలిం లోషన్ ఫాస్టెస్ట్, ట్రస్టెడ్, టెస్టెడ్ తరతరాలుగా. జాలిం లోషన్.
త్వరగా కానీ గురు, ప్లీజ్ త్వరగా. ఇంకో మ్యాచ్ ఏదైనా ఉందా? అలాంటిదే అనుకో గురు, బ్యాంక్ వెళ్ళాలి తాతగారిని తీసుకుని.
అవును కదా, వయసు అయిపోయినప్పుడు అప్పుడప్పుడు సహాయం కావాలి మరి.
కానీ బ్యాంకింగ్ కి కాదు. అయినా గానీ ఆర్బీఐ ఉంటుంది, సీనియర్ సిటిజన్స్ అందరికంటే ముందని. మీరు 70 ఏళ్లు నిండిన వారైనా, మీరు బ్యాంకుకి వెళ్ళలేకపోయినా బ్యాంకు మీ దగ్గరికి వస్తుంది అవసరమైన సేవలతో, అది యోగ్యమైన ధరలకి. సీనియర్ అందరికన్నా ముందు. ఆర్బీఐ అంటుంది, విషయాలు తెలుసుకోండి, జాగరూకంగా ఉండండి.
తిరిగి వార్తలకి స్వాగతం. ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికల నేపథ్యంలో నారా లోకేష్ యువగళం పాదయాత్ర వాయిదా పడింది. ప్రస్తుతం అన్నమయ్య జిల్లాలో యువగళం పాదయాత్ర కొనసాగుతోంది. అయితే ఎన్నికల సమయంలో ఓటర్లను పార్టీల నేతలు ప్రలోభాలకు గురిచేసే అవకాశం ఉండటంతో స్థానికేతరులు ఎన్నికలు జరుగుతున్న ప్రాంతాల్లో ఉండకూడదనే నిబంధన మేరకు ఎన్నికల ప్రవర్తన నియమావళిని గౌరవిస్తూ యువగళం పాదయాత్రకు తాత్కాలికంగా బ్రేక్ ఇచ్చినట్లు వెల్లడించారు. ఈ నెల 14వ తేదీ నుండి మళ్లీ యువగళం పాదయాత్రను ప్రారంభించనున్నట్లు టీడీపీ పేర్కొంది. ఎన్నికల నియమావళి ప్రకారం పోలింగ్ జరుగుతున్న నియోజకవర్గాల్లో 48 గంటల ముందే ఎన్నికల కోడ్ అమల్లోనికి వస్తుందని ఎన్నికల అధికారులు నారా లోకేష్ కు నోటీసులు జారీ చేశారు. దీంతో 12, 13 తేదీల్లో తాత్కాలికంగా యువగళం పాదయాత్రకు విరామం ఇచ్చారు. జనసేన పార్టీ 10వ ఆవిర్భావ దినోత్సవ వేడుకల నేపథ్యంలో పార్టీ అధ్యక్షులు పవన్ కళ్యాణ్ 4 రోజుల పాటు మంగళగిరిలోని పార్టీ రాష్ట్ర కార్యాలయంలో పలు ముఖ్య సమావేశాలు, సమీక్షల్లో పాల్గొంటారు. ఇందుకోసం హైదరాబాద్ నుండి గన్నవరం అంతర్జాతీయ విమానాశ్రయానికి చేరుకున్న పవన్ కళ్యాణ్ కు పార్టీ శ్రేణులు స్వాగతం పలికాయి. బీసీ సంక్షేమంపై పార్టీ కార్యాలయంలో రౌండ్ టేబుల్ సమావేశంలో పవన్ కళ్యాణ్ మాట్లాడుతూ బీసీలు రాజ్యాధికారం ఆర్జించడం కాకుండా సాధించుకోవాలన్నారు. బీసీ అభ్యర్థిని నిలబెట్టినప్పుడు అందరూ ఏకతాటిపైకి రావాలన్నారు. కలియుగ ప్రత్యక్ష దైవం తిరుమల శ్రీ వెంకటేశ్వర స్వామి ఆలయంలో ఈ నెల 22వ తేదీన శ్రీ శోభాకృత్ నామ సంవత్సర ఉగాది ఆస్థానాన్ని శాస్త్రోక్తంగా నిర్వహించనున్నట్లు తిరుమల తిరుపతి దేవస్థానం ప్రకటించింది. ఈ పర్వదినాన్ని పురస్కరించుకుని సుప్రభాత సేవ అనంతరం ఆలయాన్ని శుద్ధి చేయనున్నారు. ఉదయం 6 గంటలకు శ్రీదేవి భూదేవి సమేత మలయప్ప స్వామికి విశ్వక్సేనులకి విశేష సమర్పణ చేస్తారు. ఉదయం 7 గంటల నుండి 9 గంటల మధ్య విమాన ప్రాకారం ధ్వజస్తంభం చుట్టూ ఊరేగింపుగా ఆలయంలోనికి ప్రవేశిస్తారు. ఆ తర్వాత శ్రీవారి మూల విరాట్టుకు ఉత్సవ మూర్తులకు నూతన వస్త్రాలను ధరింపజేస్తారు. అనంతరం పంచాంగ శ్రవణం నిర్వహిస్తారు. ఉగాది ఆస్థానాన్ని బంగారు వాకిలి వద్ద ఆగమ పండితులు, అర్చకులు శాస్త్రోక్తంగా నిర్వహిస్తారని టీటీదే వెల్లడించింది. ఉగాది పర్వదినాన్ని పురస్కరించుకొని మార్చి 22వ తేదీన శ్రీవారి ఆలయంలో నిర్వహించే ఆర్జిత బ్రహ్మోత్సవం, కళ్యాణోత్సవం, ఊంజల్ సేవను రద్దు చేసినట్లు టీటీడీ ప్రకటించింది. అలాగే 21, 22వ తేదీల్లో వీఐపీ బ్రేక్ దర్శనాలను రద్దు చేయడమే కాకుండా ఎలాంటి సిఫార్సు లేఖలు స్వీకరించబోమని స్పష్టం చేసింది. ఈ నెల 15వ తేదీ నుండి ఇంటర్మీడియట్ పరీక్షల నేపథ్యంలో కట్టుదిట్టమైన ఏర్పాట్లు చేస్తున్నట్లు తిరుపతి జిల్లా రెవెన్యూ అధికారి శ్రీనివాసరావు తెలిపారు. జిల్లాలో మొత్తం 73 పరీక్షా కేంద్రాలను ఏర్పాటు చేసినట్లు తెలిపారు. 58,750 మంది విద్యార్థులు పరీక్షకు హాజరు కానున్నట్లు చెప్పారు. ఇంటర్మీడియట్ పరీక్షల నేపథ్యంలో విద్యార్థులు పరీక్షా కేంద్రాలకు సమయానికి చేరుకునేలా బస్సు సౌకర్యం కల్పిస్తున్నట్లు చెప్పారు. ఎండల దృష్ట్యా తాగునీరు, వైద్య సదుపాయాలను పరీక్షా కేంద్రాల వద్ద అందుబాటులో ఉంచుతున్నట్లు వివరించారు. రాష్ట్ర వ్యాప్తంగా ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికల ప్రచార గడువు ఈ సాయంత్రంతో ముగిసింది. ఎల్లుండి ఉదయం 8 గంటల నుంచి సాయంత్రం 4 గంటల వరకు పోలింగ్ నిర్వహిస్తారు. 16వ తేదీన ఓట్ల లెక్కింపు చేపడతారు. 3 పట్టభద్రులు, 2 ఉపాధ్యాయ ఎమ్మెల్సీ స్థానాలకు ఎన్నికలు జరగనున్నాయి. ఇందుకోసం అధికారులు ఇప్పటికే ఏర్పాట్లను పూర్తి చేశారు. అనంతపురం జిల్లాలో ప్రశాంత వాతావరణంలో ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికలు నిర్వహించేందుకు అన్ని ఏర్పాట్లు పూర్తి చేసినట్లు జిల్లా కలెక్టర్ నాగలక్ష్మి తెలిపారు. ఎల్లుండి జరిగే పోలింగుకు జిల్లాలో పట్టభద్రులకు సంబంధించి 49 మంది, ఉపాధ్యాయులకు సంబంధించి 33 మంది అభ్యర్థులు పోటీ చేస్తున్నారు. వైఎస్ఆర్ జిల్లా, కర్నూలు, అనంతపురం జిల్లాల్లో మొత్తం 383 పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్లను ఏర్పాటు చేశామన్నారు. ఎలాంటి అవాంఛనీయ ఘటనలకు తావు లేకుండా పటిష్టమైన భద్రతా చర్యలు చేపట్టామన్నారు.
4 PM వరకు పోల్ టైమింగ్స్ ఉంటుంది. మనకి ముఖ్యంగా ఓటర్స్ ఈసారి అర్థం చేసుకోవాల్సింది ఏంటంటే, యూజువల్లీ మనము ఓటింగ్ పద్ధతి రెగ్యులర్ ఎలక్షన్స్లో ఏంటంటే ఎమ్మెల్యే ఎలక్షన్స్లో, ఎంపీ ఎలక్షన్స్లో ఫస్ట్ పాస్ ద పోస్ట్ అంటాం, అంటే ఎవరో ఒకరికి గుర్తేయాలి అంతే. బట్ ఇప్పుడు ఉండేది ఏంటంటే ఈ మెథడ్ పేరు ప్రొపోర్షనల్ రిప్రజెంటేషన్ బై సింగిల్ ట్రాన్స్ఫరబుల్ ఓట్. అంటే మీరు ప్రిఫరెన్స్ ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు. బేసిక్లీ ఎవరో ఒకరికి ఫస్ట్ ఇచ్చుకొని ఎవరికో సెకండ్, ఎవరికో థర్డ్, ఎంతమంది ఉన్నారో అంతమందికి ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు. అంటే సీట్ ఒకటైనప్పటికీ ప్రిఫరెన్స్ ఎంతమంది క్యాండిడేట్స్ ఉన్నారో అంతమంది వరకు ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు. సో ఈసారి మెథడాలజీ, ఓటింగ్ మెథడాలజీ మనకి ప్రిఫరెన్షియల్ మెథడాలజీ. సో ఓటర్స్కి దీనికి సంబంధించి వ్యాలిడ్ ఓటుగా ఏం లెక్క అవుతుంది, ఇన్వాలిడ్ ఓటుగా ఏం లెక్క అవుతుంది అనేది ఆల్రెడీ మనం డిఫరెంట్ ఇక్కడ జిల్లా స్థాయిలో ఒకసారి ఎంప్లాయీస్కి వీళ్ళకి ట్రైనింగ్ ఇవ్వడం జరిగింది.
ప్రపంచ దేశాలతో పోలిస్తే భారత ఆర్థిక వ్యవస్థ వేగంగా అభివృద్ధి చెందుతోంది. మార్చి వరకు మొత్తం ప్రత్యక్ష పన్ను వసూళ్లు 16.68 లక్షల కోట్లు దాటాయి. గత ఏడాదితో పోలిస్తే ప్రత్యక్ష పెట్టుబడులు దాదాపు 23% పెరిగాయి. రీఫండ్ తర్వాత నికర పన్ను వసూళ్లు 13.7 లక్షల కోట్లు కాగా ఇది దాదాపు 17% ఎక్కువని కేంద్ర ప్రత్యక్ష పన్నుల బోర్డు వెల్లడించింది. స్థానిక సంస్థల ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికల ఓటింగ్పై అవగాహన కల్పించేందుకు అన్ని రాజకీయ పార్టీలు తమ వంతు కృషి చేయాలని శ్రీకాకుళం జిల్లా జాయింట్ కలెక్టర్ ఎం నవీన్ కోరారు. స్థానిక సంస్థల ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికల నిర్వహణపై పలు రాజకీయ పార్టీల ప్రతినిధులతో ఈ రోజు సమీక్షించారు. ఈ సందర్భంగా ఆయన మాట్లాడుతూ ఓటర్లు తమ హక్కును విజయవంతంగా వినియోగించే దిశగా రాజకీయ పార్టీల ప్రతినిధులకు అవగాహన కల్పించాలని కోరారు.
మొత్తం మనకి సీఈఓ ఆఫీస్ నుంచి 1000 బ్యాలెట్ పేపర్లు రావడం జరిగింది. దాన్ని సీరియల్ వారీగా మనము చెక్ చేయడం జరిగింది. ఒక 81 బ్యాలెట్ పేపర్స్ మనకి ఇష్యూ వచ్చింది. సో దాన్ని పక్కన పెట్టి మిగిలినవన్నీ ఈక్వల్గా డిస్ట్రిబ్యూట్ చేయడం జరిగింది. డిస్ట్రిబ్యూట్ చేయగా స్పాయిల్డ్ పేపర్స్ పక్కన పెడితే కూడా 118 మనకు రిజర్వ్లో ఉన్నాయి. అవి ఈచ్ అండ్ ఎవ్రీ జోనల్ ఆఫీసర్కి కూడా మనకు సరిపడా రిజర్వ్ ఎంతైతే 10 to 20% అనేది ఉంది, దానికంటే మించి కూడా మనము జోనల్ ఆఫీసర్స్ దగ్గర పెట్టున్నాము. సో యాజ్ ఫార్ యాజ్ పాసిబుల్ బ్యాలెట్ పేపర్ సంబంధించి మనకు ఎటువంటి ఇష్యూ లేకుండా ఉంది. అలాగే ఇంకా మిగిలిన ఇతరత్ర పోలింగ్ మెటీరియల్ అంతా బ్యాలెట్ బాక్సెస్ కానివ్వండి, లేకపోతే స్టాచ్యురీ కవర్స్ అవనివ్వండి, స్టేషనరీ మెటీరియల్ కానివ్వండి, ఇతరత్ర ఫామ్స్ అన్నీ కూడా ఆల్రెడీ సెగ్రిగేట్ చేసి బ్యాలెట్ బాక్స్ అయితే ఒకసారి మనం వెరిఫై చేసుకొని కూడా మనం పెట్టుకోవడం జరిగింది డిపిఆర్సీలో. అది 12వ తారీఖు రేపు మార్నింగ్ మనము అన్ని పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్కి డిస్పాచ్ చేయడం జరుగుతుంది. అలాగే పోలింగ్ పర్సనల్ అనేది పిఓస్, ఏపీఓస్, ఓపీఓస్, కౌంటింగ్ ఏజెంట్స్, కౌంటింగ్ సూపర్వైజర్స్, కౌంటింగ్ అసిస్టెంట్స్ అందరూ కూడా మనము ఆల్రెడీ అపాయింట్ చేసి ట్రైనింగ్స్ కూడా ఇవ్వడం జరిగింది.
స్థానిక సంస్థల ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికలకు సంబంధించి కర్నూలు జిల్లాలో అన్ని ఏర్పాట్లు పూర్తి చేశామని జిల్లా కలెక్టర్ పి కోటేశ్వరరావు తెలిపారు. పశ్చిమ రాయలసీమ పట్టభద్రుల ఉపాధ్యాయుల ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికలతో పాటు ఉమ్మడి కర్నూలు జిల్లా స్థానిక సంస్థల ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికలు ఎల్లుండి జరగనున్నాయి. జిల్లాలో 107 పోలింగ్ కేంద్రాలను ఏర్పాటు చేసినట్లు తెలిపారు. జిల్లాలో పట్టభద్రుల ఓటర్లు 61,633 మంది, ఉపాధ్యాయ ఓటర్లు 5,391 మంది, స్థానిక సంస్థల ఓటర్లు 1,178 మంది తమ ఓటు హక్కును వినియోగించుకోనున్నారు.
మొత్తము 61,633 మంది ఓటర్లు ఉన్నారు మన దగ్గర. అదేవిధంగా టీచర్స్ కాన్స్టిట్యున్సీకి 27 పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్స్ మనం ఏర్పాటు చేసుకోవడం జరిగింది. దానికి గాను 5,391 ఓటర్లు ఉన్నారు. అదేవిధంగా లోకల్ అథారిటీస్కి సంబంధించి 6 పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్స్, అంటే మనము 6 ఆర్డీఓ డివిజనల్ హెడ్ క్వార్టర్స్లో వీటిని పెట్టుకోవడం జరిగింది లోకల్ అథారిటీస్కు. కర్నూలు అంటే ఎస్ట్వైల్ కర్నూలు నంద్యాలకు కలిపి ఈ 6 చోట్ల 6 డివిజన్లో మనము ఈ పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్స్ ఏర్పాటు చేసుకోవడం జరిగింది. దానికి గాను 1,178 మంది ఓటర్లు ఉన్నారు. తర్వాత మనము ఈ అన్నిటికీ పోలింగ్ స్టాఫ్ని వాళ్ళన్నిటినీ మనం ఏర్పాటు చేసుకోవడం జరిగింది. దానికి సంబంధించి ఆల్రెడీ ఆదేశాలు కూడా ఇచ్చాము. జోనల్ ఆఫీసర్ మనము 16 రూట్స్ని ఐడెంటిఫై చేసుకున్నాం. 16 రూట్లలో పోలింగ్ పర్సనల్ వెళ్తారు, వారితో పాటు పోలింగ్ మెటీరియల్ వెళ్తుంది. అది అయిన తర్వాత పోలింగ్ అయిన తర్వాత సీల్డ్ బాక్సులు కూడా తిరిగి అదే రూట్లో రావడం జరుగుతుంది.
ఇప్పుడు ఒక చిన్న విరామం.
సిగ్గెందుకు పడుతున్నావు? గజ్జి తామర దురద అందరికీ వస్తాయి. జాలిం లోషన్ నాకు నానమిచ్చింది. చర్మ వ్యాధులకు అద్భుత పరిష్కారం అంది. జాలిం లోషన్ పురాతన యోధుడు, పురాతనమైందే మెరుగైంది. జాలిం లోషన్ ఫాస్టెస్ట్, ట్రస్టెడ్, టెస్టెడ్ తరతరాలుగా. జాలిం లోషన్.
తిరిగి వార్తలకి స్వాగతం. ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికల్లో బోగస్ ఓటర్లు, దొంగ ఓట్లు వేస్తున్నారన్న పలు పార్టీల ఫిర్యాదులపై ఎన్నికల కమిషన్కు నివేదిక పంపామని తిరుపతి జిల్లా జాయింట్ కలెక్టర్ బాలాజీ స్పష్టం చేశారు. శ్రీకాళహస్తిలోని స్కిట్ కళాశాలలో ఎమ్మెల్సీ ఎన్నికలకు సంబంధించి పోలింగ్ కేంద్రాల్లో ఏర్పాట్లను ఈ రోజు ఆయన పరిశీలించారు. ఎన్నికల విధుల్లో పాల్గొంటున్న సిబ్బందితో సమావేశమై పలు సూచనలు చేశారు. ఎన్నికలు తుది దశకు చేరుకున్న తరుణంలో ఎలాంటి ఇబ్బందులు తలెత్తకుండా జాగ్రత్త పడాలని సిబ్బందిని జాయింట్ కలెక్టర్ ఆదేశించారు.
12వ తేదీ డిస్ట్రిబ్యూషన్ ఉంటుంది కనుక శ్రీ కాళహస్తి ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ ఆఫ్ టెక్నాలజీలో కాళహస్తి రెవెన్యూ డివిజన్కి సంబంధించిండే అన్ని పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్స్కి కూడాను పోలింగ్ పార్టీస్ని ఇక్కడ పిలిపించి వాళ్ళందరినీ పార్టీ చేస్తూ మళ్ళీ అక్కడ మెటీరియల్ అంతా వాళ్ళకి డిస్ట్రిబ్యూట్ చేస్తూ పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్స్కి రేపే పంపించడం జరుగుతుంది. సో ఎల్లుండి అంటే 13వ తేదీ మార్నింగ్ 8 గంటల నుంచి సాయంత్రం 4 గంటల వరకు కూడాను పోలింగ్ ప్రక్రియ జరగబోతుంది. సో దీనికి సంబంధించి అన్ని సజావుగా జరగాలి, ఎక్కడ కూడాను లా అండ్ ఆర్డర్ ఇష్యూస్ రాకూడదు అనే ఉద్దేశంతో చాలా పకడ్బందీగా ప్రణాళిక సిద్ధం చేసుకుంటూ దాన్ని పకడ్బందీగా అమలు చేసుకుంటూ ఎక్కడ కూడా ఏమీ సంఘటనలు జరగకుండా చూసుకునే దానికి అన్ని సంసిద్ధంగా ఉన్నాం. దానికి సంబంధించి ఏమేమి కంప్లైంట్స్ వచ్చిందో ఆ కంప్లైంట్స్ కి సంబంధించి ఆల్రెడీ ఎంక్వైరీ రిపోర్ట్స్ అన్ని కూడా మేము తయారు చేసి ఎలక్షన్ కమిషన్ పంపిస్తున్నాము. ఎలక్షన్ కమిషన్ విల్ టేక్ ఎ డిసిషన్.
పశ్చిమ గోదావరి జిల్లా వెంకటరామన్నగూడెంలోని డాక్టర్ వైఎస్ఆర్ ఉద్యాన విశ్వవిద్యాలయంలో బంగ్లాదేశ్కు చెందిన మహిళా పారిశ్రామికవేత్తలకు శిక్షణా తరగతులు జరుగుతున్నాయి. ఈ నెల 16వ తేదీ వరకు జరిగే శిక్షణలో పూల వినియోగంలో వాణిజ్యపరంగా భారత్ అనుసరిస్తున్న సాంకేతిక పరిజ్ఞానాన్ని తెలుసుకోనున్నారు. ఈ సందర్భంగా బంగ్లాదేశ్కు చెందిన షేక్ ఏ బంగ్లా వ్యవసాయ విశ్వవిద్యాలయ ఆచార్యులు అబుల్ ఫైజ్ మహ్మద్ జమాలుద్దీన్ మాట్లాడుతూ భారతదేశంలో వాణిజ్యపరంగా పూలు వినియోగిస్తున్న పరిజ్ఞానం ప్రశంసనీయమని అభివర్ణించారు. తమ దేశంలో పూల సాగు అధికంగా చేపడుతున్నా వాటికి విలువ జోడించడంలో వెనుకంజలో ఉన్నామన్నారు. ఈ నేపథ్యంలో వైఎస్ఆర్ ఉద్యాన విశ్వవిద్యాలయంలో శిక్షణ కోసం వచ్చామన్నారు.
Lot of flowers, but we cannot utilize this flower in commercial venture. So our government is planning to introduce these modern technologies in our Bangladesh sector, flower sector. So we are here, a team of 10 members here, that is to learn how to improve our in the flower industry, to learn how we can value edit our flower in Bangladesh condition.
ఉత్తరప్రదేశ్ రాష్ట్రం మీరట్లోని చౌదరి చరణ్ సింగ్ యూనివర్సిటీలో అఖిల భారత ఆయుర్వేద మహాసమ్మేళనం జరిగింది. ఈ కార్యక్రమానికి ముఖ్య అతిథిగా ఉపరాష్ట్రపతి జగదీప్ ధన్ఖడ్ హాజరయ్యారు. యూనివర్సిటీ క్యాంపస్లోని ఎగ్జిబిషన్ను సందర్శించారు. ఈ సందర్భంగా ఆయన మాట్లాడుతూ ఆయుర్వేదంలో పరిశోధనలకు యువత ముందుకు రావాలని పిలుపునిచ్చారు. 2047 నాటికి భారత్ను మేటిగా నిలపడంలో యువశక్తి కీలక పాత్ర పోషించనుందన్నారు. ప్రధానమంత్రి నరేంద్ర మోదీ తనను రైతు బిడ్డగా అభివర్ణించడం గర్వంగా భావిస్తున్నానని ఉపరాష్ట్రపతి జగదీప్ ధన్ఖడ్ అన్నారు.
देश का हित और तभी पहली बार आपने देखा होगा कि दुनिया के देशों में भारत की आवाज सुनी नहीं जाती है. इंतजार करते हैं कि इस मुद्दे पर भारत क्या बोलेगा.
కర్ణాటకలో త్వరలో శాసనసభ ఎన్నికలు జరగనున్న నేపథ్యంలో పూర్తిస్థాయి ఓటింగ్పై దృష్టి సారించామని కేంద్ర ఎన్నికల కమిషనర్ రాజీవ్ కుమార్ స్పష్టం చేశారు. ఈసారి 80 ఏళ్లకు పైబడిన దివ్యాంగులను పూర్తి స్థాయిలో పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్కు తీసుకువచ్చేందుకు చర్యలు చేపడుతున్నామన్నారు. వీరు పోలింగ్ స్టేషన్కు రాని పక్షంలో ఇంటి వద్దకే వచ్చి ఓటు వేయించేలా చూస్తామన్నారు. ఈ ప్రక్రియ అంతా పారదర్శకంగా జరిగేలా చర్యలు తీసుకుంటున్నామన్నారు. ఈ నిర్ణయంపై అన్ని రాజకీయ పార్టీలకు త్వరలోనే తెలియజేస్తామని సిఈసి రాజీవ్ కుమార్ స్పష్టం చేశారు.
During the SSR exercise, the Commission has laid emphasis on the new age voters, as I mentioned, the first time voters, the women, transgenders, particularly vulnerable tribal groups, persons with disabilities. We went extra mile to cover all these voters into our electoral rolls. So this is our concern that, every person with disability should be empowered and come to the voting station. So a request to everyone here, with the help of the enlightened voters, to suggest us so that we can improve these participation, not only in Karnataka but follow this in the other states also whenever we witness these kind of apathy. Being in the IT city, I'll mention about the IT applications of the Commission, which can be used during the polling, during the election. You can know your booth, you can connect to your BLO, RLO, you can see results, you can see all election trends, you can find about EVMs, whatever you want to know. It's a voter helpline. Please find time to go through this, it will be helpful.
ఇప్పుడు జాతీయ వార్తల సంక్షిప్త సమాహారాన్ని చూద్దాం.
కరోనా మహమ్మారి పరిస్థితుల కారణంగా న్యాయ వ్యవస్థ అధునాతన విధానాలను అందిపుచ్చుకుందని భారత ప్రధాన న్యాయమూర్తి జస్టిస్ డివై చంద్రచూడ్ పేర్కొన్నారు. ప్రజలకు న్యాయాన్ని చేరువ చేయడానికి వాటిని అనుసరించాల్సి వచ్చిందని వ్యాఖ్యానించారు. ఢిల్లీలో ప్రారంభమైన షాంఘై సహకార సంస్థ సభ్య దేశాల సర్వోన్నత న్యాయస్థానాల ప్రధాన న్యాయమూర్తులు 18వ సదస్సులో ఆయన ఈ మేరకు ప్రసంగించారు. కోవిడ్ సమయంలో భారత్లో భౌతిక దూరం, లాక్డౌన్ తదితర ఆంక్షల వల్ల కోర్టుల రోజువారీ కార్యకలాపాలకు అడ్డంకులు ఎదురయ్యాయి. ప్రజలకు న్యాయాన్ని చేరువ చేసేందుకు సుప్రీంకోర్టు సాంకేతిక పరిజ్ఞానాన్ని అందిపుచ్చుకుని త్వరితగతిన చర్యలు చేపట్టింది. ఈ కోర్టులు, ఈ ఫైలింగ్, వర్చువల్ విచారణలు, ప్రత్యక్ష ప్రసారాలతో ఈ అడ్డంకులను అధిగమించి న్యాయాన్ని అందరికీ చేరువ చేసింది. సుప్రీంకోర్టు, హైకోర్టులు పలు ప్రజా ప్రయోజన అంశాలపై వ్యాజ్యాలను లేఖల రూపంలోనూ సుమోటోగాను స్వీకరించాయి అని జస్టిస్ చంద్రచూడ్ పేర్కొన్నారు. ఈ సదస్సు ఈ నెల 12 వరకు కొనసాగనుంది. రాజకీయాలతో సంబంధం ఉన్న వ్యక్తుల ఆర్థిక లావాదేవీలను ఇక బ్యాంకులు, ఆర్థిక సంస్థలు ప్రత్యేకంగా నమోదు చేయనున్నాయి. ఈ మేరకు అక్రమ నగదు చలామణి చట్టంలోని నిబంధనల్ని కేంద్రం సవరించింది. దీంతో ఎన్ఫోర్స్మెంట్ డైరెక్టరేట్ పరిధి మరింత పెరగనుంది. రాజకీయాలతో సంబంధం ఉన్న వ్యక్తులను పీఈపీ అని వ్యవహరిస్తారు. సవరించిన నిబంధనల ప్రకారం పీఈపీ నిర్వచనంలోకి ఇతర దేశాల తరపున ప్రజా సంబంధిత బాధ్యతలు నిర్వహిస్తున్న వ్యక్తులు, రాష్ట్రాల ప్రభుత్వాల అధిపతులు, సీనియర్ రాజకీయ నేతలు, ప్రభుత్వ, న్యాయ, సైనిక అధికారులు, రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వ యాజమాన్యంలోని కార్పొరేషన్లు, ఉన్నతాధికారులు, రాజకీయ పార్టీలకు చెందిన ముఖ్య అధికారులు వస్తారు. కొత్త నిబంధనల ప్రకారం బ్యాంకులు, ఆర్థిక సంస్థలు ఇక ప్రత్యేకంగా వీరి ఆర్థిక లావాదేవీలను నమోదు చేయడమే కాదు, ఈడీ అడిగిన వెంటనే ఆ వివరాలను సమర్పించాల్సి ఉంటుంది. అగ్నివీరులకు రిజర్వేషన్ల విషయంలో కేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వం కీలక నిర్ణయం తీసుకుంది. సరిహద్దు రక్షణ దళం బీఎస్ఎఫ్ ఉద్యోగ ఖాళీల్లో మాజీ అగ్నివీరులకు 10% రిజర్వేషన్ కల్పిస్తున్నట్లు కేంద్ర హోంశాఖ ప్రకటించింది. అదేవిధంగా గరిష్ట వయో పరిమితిని సడలించడంతో పాటు శారీరక సామర్థ్య పరీక్ష నుంచి మాజీ అగ్నివీరులకు మినహాయింపు ఇస్తున్నట్లు తెలిపింది. మొదటి బ్యాచ్ అగ్నివీరులకు ఈ వయసు సడలింపు 5 ఏళ్లు ఉంటుందని, తర్వాతి బ్యాచ్ల వారికి 3 ఏళ్లు ఉంటుందని హోంశాఖ విడుదల చేసిన నోటిఫికేషన్లో పేర్కొంది. గుజరాత్ రాష్ట్రంలోని గోద్రా అల్లర్లపై ప్రధానమంత్రి నరేంద్ర మోదీపై బీబీసీ తీసిన డాక్యుమెంటరీకి వ్యతిరేకంగా గుజరాత్ అసెంబ్లీ తీర్మానం చేసింది. ఈ బీబీసీ డాక్యుమెంటరీ కేవలం మోడీకి వ్యతిరేకంగా కాదు, దేశంలోని 135 కోట్ల మంది పౌరులకు వ్యతిరేకంగా ఉంది అని గుజరాత్ హోంశాఖ మంత్రి వ్యాఖ్యానించారు. 2022 గుజరాత్ అల్లర్లకు సంబంధించిన ప్రధాని మోదీ రాష్ట్ర ముఖ్యమంత్రిగా ఉన్నప్పుడు కొన్ని అంశాలను దర్యాప్తు చేసినట్లు బీబీసీ పేర్కొంది. అయితే విదేశీ వ్యవహారాల మంత్రిత్వ శాఖ ఆ డాక్యుమెంటరీ నిష్పాక్షికత లేదని పేర్కొంది. ఆర్జేడీ నేత బీహార్ ఉప ముఖ్యమంత్రి తేజస్వి యాదవ్ ఇంట్లో ఈడీ సోదాలు నిర్వహించింది. రైల్వేలో ఉద్యోగాలు ఇప్పించేందుకు కొంతమంది అభ్యర్థుల నుంచి ఆర్జేడీ అధినేత లాలూ కుటుంబం భూములు తీసుకుందన్న అభియోగాల కేసు దర్యాప్తులో భాగంగా ఈ సోదాలు చేసింది. కొద్ది రోజుల క్రితం లాలూ ఆయన భార్య రబ్రీదేవిని సీబీఐ ప్రశ్నించింది. తాజాగా ఢిల్లీలోని తేజస్వి యాదవ్ ఇంట్లో కూడా ఈడీ అధికారులు తనిఖీలు చేశారు. మరోవైపు లాలూ ప్రసాద్ ముగ్గురు కుమార్తెలు రాగిణి, చందా, హేమల ఇళ్లతో పాటు బీహార్, యూపీ, ముంబైలోని ఆయన కుటుంబానికి చెందిన వ్యక్తులు, పార్టీ నేతల ఇళ్లలోనూ సోదాలు జరిగాయి. లాలూ సన్నిహితుడు ఎమ్మెల్యే అబు దుజానా ఇంట్లో కూడా తనిఖీలు చేసినట్లు ఈడీ అధికారులు తెలిపారు.
అహ్మదాబాద్ వేదికగా భారత్, ఆస్ట్రేలియాల మధ్య జరుగుతున్న 4వ టెస్టులో టీమిండియా ధీటుగా సమాధానమిచ్చింది. 3వ రోజు ఆట ముగిసే సమయానికి మొదటి ఇన్నింగ్స్లో భారత జట్టు 3 వికెట్ల నష్టానికి 289 పరుగులు చేసింది. ఓవర్ నైట్ స్కోర్ 36తో 3వ రోజు ఆటను ప్రారంభించిన టీమిండియాకు శుభ్మన్ గిల్ అండగా నిలిచాడు. సొగసైన ఆట తీరుతో శతకం చేయగా రోహిత్ శర్మ 35, పుజారా 42 రన్స్ చేశారు. విరాట్ కోహ్లీ 59, రవీంద్ర జడేజా 16 పరుగులతో క్రీజ్లో ఉన్నారు. మొదటి ఇన్నింగ్స్లో ఆసీస్ జట్టు 480 పరుగులకు ఆలౌట్ అయిన సంగతి తెలిసిందే. ఈ వార్తలు ఇంతటితో సమాప్తం. నమస్కారం.
కమాన్ బాయ్స్, లెట్స్ గో ప్రాక్టీస్. అరే ఉండు గురు, నా బ్యాంక్ అకౌంట్ లో తప్పేంటి ప్రాబ్లం ఎదురైంది. అయితే బ్యాంక్ కంప్లైంట్ చేయి. బ్యాంక్ రాసి 1 నెల అయిపోయింది, బట్ వాళ్ళు గూగుల్ మీద గూగుల్ వేస్తున్నారు.
అయితే ఆర్బీఐ బ్యాంకింగ్ న్యాయాధికారికి ఇన్ఫార్మ్ చేయి.
ఉండు నేను చెప్తాను. క్రికెట్ లో థర్డ్ ఎంపైర్ ఉన్నట్టే ఆర్బీఐ
एनईएफटी यूपीआई भी 24 घंटे करते ये काम, पेमेंट आसान और रहे आराम। आरबीआई कहता है जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
Hello, you're watching DD India and I'm Preeti welcoming you to this edition of India This Week. In the next half an hour, we take you closer to the big stories of the week, stories that map the rights of New India. The week was marked by the assurance by Prime Minister Modi that is, making medical treatment affordable is the topmost priority of the government. Addressing a post-budget webinar on health and medical research, Prime Minister emphasized on how we have put a vision of one earth, one health before the world. The Deccan University, one of Australia's leading higher education institutions, will establish the first ever international branch campus of any university in India. The week also saw fun-filled celebrations of Holi, the festival of colours. We get you a quick sneak peek into the Holi fun and frolic. All this and more in the next half hour. Let's begin with the top stories. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses a post-budget webinar on the subject of health and medical research. Terms making medical treatment affordable, the topmost priority of his government, says Ayushman Bharat and Jan Aushadhi schemes saved more than 1 lakh crore rupees of the patients. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese visits India for the first time as the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Australian counterpart hold annual summit in Delhi. Prime Minister Modi and Australian Prime Minister meet Indian and Australian teams ahead of the 4th Test match at Narendra Modi Stadium. Both Prime Ministers tour Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad, hand over Test match caps to respective team captains. International Women's Day celebrated across the globe. Russian President Vladimir Putin presents state awards to the women achievers. ECB President Christine Lagarde calls for more female leaders across sectors. Women take out protests in Jakarta, urging equal rights for women labourers. Sri Lanka too witnesses similar protest. India celebrates Festival of Colours. US Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo joins Holi celebration at Defence Minister Rajnath Singh's residence. Other union ministers too join the fervour. U.S. Commerce Secretary participates in the Indo-U.S. Commercial Dialogue and CEO Forum during a 4-day visit. All right, let's start. We take a look at how India is on the move. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, during his post-budget webinar, stressed on making medical treatment affordable for all. The Prime Minister highlighted the role of technology in constantly making medical services accessible to all. He pointed out that medical tourism is a very large sector in India and also becoming a huge medium for generating employment in the country. A report ahead.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed a post-budget webinar on subject of health and medical research. This is the 9th of a series of 12 post-budget webinars organized by the government to seek ideas and suggestions for effectively implementing the initiatives announced in the Union Budget 2023. Addressing the gathering, Prime Minister said that healthcare could be seen in terms of pre- and post-COVID pandemic systems. He said the pandemic tested even prosperous nations.
जब हम हेल्थ केयर की बात करते हैं तो इसे प्री कोविड एरा और पोस्ट पैंडेमिक एरा इसके विभाजन के साथ देखना चाहिए। कोरोना ने पूरे विश्व को ये दिखाया और सिखाया भी कि जब इतनी बड़ी आपदा होती है तो समृद्ध देशों की विकसित व्यवस्थाएं भी ध्वस्त हो जाती हैं। दुनिया का ध्यान पहले से कहीं ज्यादा अब हेल्थ केयर पर आया है, लेकिन भारत की अप्रोच सिर्फ हेल्थ केयर तक ही सीमित नहीं, बल्कि हम एक कदम आगे बढ़कर वेलनेस के लिए काम कर रहे हैं। इसलिए हमने दुनिया के सामने एक विजन रखा है, वन अर्थ वन हेल्थ।
Prime Minister highlighted the role of technology in constantly making medical services accessible and affordable and elaborated on the government's focus on implementation of technology in the sector.
हमारे एंटरप्रेन्योर्स ये सुनिश्चित करें कि हमें कोई भी टेक्नोलॉजी अब इंपोर्ट करने से बचना चाहिए। आत्मनिर्भर बनना ही है। हमें इसके लिए जरूरी इंस्टीट्यूशनल रिफॉर्म्स भी कर रहे हैं।
Prime Minister underlined that critical health infrastructure is being made accessible to small towns and villages under PM Ayushman Bharat Health Infrastructure Mission, which is not only giving rise to new hospitals but also creating a new and complete health ecosystem.
भारत में इलाज को एफोर्डेबल बनाना हमारी सरकार की सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता रही है। आयुष्मान भारत के तहत 5 लाख रुपए तक के मुफ्त इलाज को ये सुविधा देने के पीछे हमारे मन में यही भाव है। इसके तहत अभी तक देश के करोड़ों मरीजों के लगभग 80,000 करोड़ रुपए जो बीमारी में उपचार के लिए खर्च होने वाले थे, वो खर्च होने से बचे हैं।
Highlighting the growing confidence of the world in pharma sector of India, the Prime Minister emphasized the need to capitalize on this and work towards protecting this image. PM also said PM Matru Vandana Yojana, Mission Indradhanush, Yoga, Fit India Movement and Ayurveda are protecting people from diseases. Prime Minister stressed that developed health and wellness ecosystem can be created in India only with Sabka Prayas and requested all stakeholders to give in their valuable suggestions. With Bureau Inputs, DD India.
And now a look at how India is making strides towards a new India. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates met Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and the two held wide-ranging discussions about India's incredible progress and its innovations that can benefit the world. Bill Gates also tweeted India's numbers story. He wrote, and I quote him, "These numbers prove why India plays such a crucial role in the world's fight to improve health, reduce poverty, prevent climate change, and more." Take a look at this video where Bill Gates acknowledges India's incredible progress and its innovations.
India has changed massively. In 1980, only 1 in 10 kids received their necessary vaccinations. Today, India provides essential vaccines to almost 90% of children. It's mind-blowing. India is also educating way more children than ever before. In 1970, over half of the children in India were enrolled in primary school. Today, primary school enrollment is nearly 100%. Both health and education are contributing to great progress. You see it in the number of people living on less than $2 a day. In 1980, 60% of Indians lived on less than $2 per day. Today, it's down to 10%. India's made tremendous progress in a short amount of time.
In Mumbai, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese visited INS Vikrant. He tweeted pictures of his visit. The Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Hari Kumar, did the honours and took the Australian Prime Minister around the aircraft carrier.
After concluding his visit to Gujarat, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese headed to Mumbai in Maharashtra. Anthony Albanese visited INS Vikrant, India's first indigenous aircraft carrier, where he was accorded the Guard of Honour on the nation's largest warship. He later stepped in the light combat aircraft and understood its working. The Prime Minister was accompanied by Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral R. Hari Kumar, among others. Anthony Albanese said he was honoured to be on INS Vikrant on the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He termed India as Australia's top-tier security partner.
For Australia, India is a top-tier security partner. The Indian Ocean is central to both countries' security and our prosperity. And there has never been a point in both of our countries' histories where we've had such a strong strategic alignment, which has been reinforced by my current visit to India and will be reinforced further by Prime Minister Modi's attendance at the Quad Leaders meeting in a short period of time.
The Australian PM also announced that later this year, Australia will host Exercise Malabar for the first time, and India will also for the first time participate in Australia's Talisman Sabre exercise. He emphasized in a major step forward in the relationship, India and Australia undertook maritime patrol aircraft deployments to each other's territories for the first time.
But arguably, what lifts defence relationships to new levels is the resolve and foresight of those who see the relationship not just for what it is, but for what it could be. One such person is my friend, Prime Minister Modi. I'd like to thank him today, not only for his kind invitation for me to visit this landmark capability, but for his dedication in driving forward our defence and security partnership. A partnership that is of increasing strategic importance as we navigate the challenges of our region together. I predict that 2023 will be busier than ever for our defence cooperation.
Albanese said that PM Modi is driving defence and security partnership and that there never had been a point where Australia had such a strong strategic partner. The Australian Prime Minister added that he predicts the year 2023 will be busier for business cooperation. With inputs from Shyama Mishra, DD India.
Ahmedabad had two special attendees at the start of the fourth and final cricket test match between India and Australia. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Australian counterpart Anthony Albanese gave their sides a boost of confidence by their presence. Cricket aside, the occasion was one of warmth. The Australian Prime Minister tweeted that Australia and India are competing to be the best in the world. Off the field, they are also cooperating to build a better world. Here's the report.
The Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad, the world's largest cricket stadium, on the field arguably the world's strongest cricket teams and their prime ministers. It is truly a historic moment, and at a stadium that is steeped in history. The ground on which Indian legend Sunil Gavaskar became the first man to hit 10,000 test runs, and fellow legend Kapil Dev became the first man to take 432 test wickets. Cricket is the national sport of Australia and more or less as a religion in India. The two prime ministers also went through exhibits depicting great moments of the sports at the stadium, narrated by former cricketer Ravi Shastri. Prime Minister Narendra Modi responded to a tweet by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Cricket, a common passion in India and Australia. Glad to be in Ahmedabad and with my good friend Prime Minister Anthony Albanese to witness parts of the India-Australia Test match. I am sure it will be an exciting game. Prime Minister also shared glimpses of the test match from Ahmedabad, tweeting, "Some more glimpses from Ahmedabad? It is cricket all over." Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese had tweeted, "As two cricket-loving nations, Australia and India share a fierce but friendly rivalry. At the heart of this contest is genuine respect, reflecting the affection and friendship between our people. On the field, Australia and India are competing to be the best in the world. Off the field, we are cooperating to build a better world." Before the match, both the Prime Ministers honoured the captains of their respective cricket teams and presented them with a special cap for particular test match. Both the Prime Ministers also visited Women's Premier League corner. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is on a state visit to India until the 11th of March. On his first such visit to India, he brings with him a high-level delegation that includes ministers for trade and tourism, resources and Northern Australia and business delegates. The India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement (ECTA) came into force on the 29th of December 2022. Currently, 96% of exports from India are tariff-free, rising to 100% in 4 years. Also, over 85% of imports from Australia are tariff-free. This will rise to 90% in 6 years. Tariffs also have been reduced on several other products, leaving the Aussie cricketers to fight it out amid the heat. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese visited Mumbai and India's first indigenously built aircraft carrier INS Vikrant. Australia and India are both members of the Quad, which is an Indo-Pacific grouping that looks at, apart from other things, the ability of partner countries and islands in the Pacific, Southeast Asia and Indian Ocean to fully monitor the waters on their shores and uphold a free and open Indo-Pacific. Prime Minister Albanese will be accorded a ceremonial welcome at the forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan on the 10th of March. This will be followed by the annual India-Australia Summit. The two countries share a comprehensive strategic partnership and have common positions on several regional and global issues of mutual interest. Prime Minister will also call on President Draupadi Murmu. The two countries elevated their partnership to a comprehensive strategic partnership in June 2020 and has since been strengthened by frequent high-level exchanges and enhanced cooperation across sectors. Prime Minister Albanese's visit provides yet another opportunity for both the countries to take comprehensive strategic partnership to next level.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Albanese came together at the historic Narendra Modi Stadium to witness the first day of the test match, the fourth test match between India and Australia. What important is that there is much more in store with Prime Minister Albanese's visit to India. This 4-day visit will also witness the very historic India-Australia Annual Summit, which will be the first in-person India-Australia Annual Summit. And this summit will have a host of number of areas of cooperation discussions on them in terms of educational qualifications, in terms of migration and mobility, and also in terms of critical minerals, renewable resources, and much more, with Prime Minister Albanese's visit to India. With camera person Sanjay Jaina, this is Meghna Dev, 40T India from Ahmedabad.
And now let's get you the newsmaker of the week. The Deccan University, one of Australia's leading higher educational institutions, will establish the first ever international branch campus of any university in India. The proposed vertical campus will embody cutting-edge facilities and also focus on digital economy and innovation, and will be located in Gujarat's Smart Business District, Gift City. The campus will soon provide postgraduate programs in cybersecurity and business analytics, which are equivalent to those offered by Deccan University in Australia. Also, these programs are accredited by the Australian Computer Society. Professor Ian Martin, Vice Chancellor of Deccan University, and Ravneet Pawar, the CEO South Asia of Deccan University, spoke exclusively to DD India. Let's listen in.
So Deacon's been in India nearly 30 years now, and we've looked for every opportunity to build the Australia-India relationship. And as the policy settings with the NEP have opened things up, we've embraced that, and with the opportunity to launch a campus in Gift City here in Ahmedabad, we've seized that opportunity. What we'll be doing is teaching Deacan degrees, full Deacan degrees, the same as get taught in Australia here. We'll start concentrating in the postgraduate business area, the degrees that really matter for the digital economy, cybersecurity, data analytics, and growing from that into other areas where the skills are so in demand, not just in India, but globally.
The original plan will be to focus on India for the first year or so, but we do think that we would like to open it up to students from South Asia as well, because I think it's a great opportunity for Australia, India to build connections, but also I think it's a great opportunity for countries from South Asia to take the benefit of this. The programs that we are going to be offering will be in cybersecurity and in business analytics to start with, but we will move ahead with other programs as we move along.
And now we present the talking point. Former England cricketer Monty Panesar is all set to compete in Legends League cricket being held in Qatar. He is playing for the World Giants in the league and looks forward to do well in the season. DD India's Abhishek Mahajan spoke to him in an exclusive chat. Let's listen in.
And your most prized wicket would be your first wicket of Sachin Tendulkar. I've never seen you celebrating like that in your entire career.
Yeah, I think that'll probably be my favourite moment in Test cricket. I never expected, to get the great man out, but I think it was just a celebration, really. Probably celebrating his greatness or the complete shock of getting, someone high profile as Sachin Tendulkar. So I tend to not mention it too often because I think the Indian public don't really like it. So I tend to have like over 20% of the world population sort of not disliking me because they go, you took Sachin Tendulkar as your first Test wicket.
Yeah. Absolutely, and you had a great partnership also in 2012. Did you enjoy bowling in India? I mean, maybe your favorite destination to bowl here, and you had a great partnership with Graeme Swann also in 2012. You had a record also. You both took 19 wickets in 4 Test matches, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, we absolutely loved it here, and I think the hospitality, the love of cricket, the way everyone sort of just gives so much warmth and affection. I absolutely love India, and also the pitches. They do tend to turn a bit more, but the SG ball kind of changed a little bit. The seam became a bit more pronounced, a little bit more harder than I previously played on Indian tours, where the seam gets very soft very quickly. So the balls have been, I think, the biggest difference. The quality of balls have been much better, and that allows me to bowl with a bit more pace. And knowing that the harder seam will bite and catch and get a better turn. So yeah, it's been, I absolutely loved coming to India and I loved bowling here.
And if I ask you about your best moment in international cricket, maybe your first wicket of Sachin Tendulkar, Ashes win, 5 wickets at the Waka, I remember, maybe your debut or 23 wickets against the West Indies in that series, your best moment in international cricket.
Yeah, look, there's been many fine moments, individual performances that I've talked about, but I think one of my favourite moments have always been winning the Ashes in Australia. And I think as a squad, when we sat down at Sydney and all of the squad was there on the square, we were just going through everyone's favourite moments. And I thoroughly enjoyed that moment because it was just unbelievable. I didn't play any of the Test matches, but I very much felt part of it. And that was to do with the, how the coaches and the members of the players made everyone felt part of the team. So, winning in Australia, the Ashes is a huge moment, and also winning in India. That was massive as well. I think it was 27 years since England last time won in India. It just shows how difficult it is. So yeah, for me, they were probably the two of the biggest moments of my career.
And up next, we get you some glimpses of India's rich cultural diversity in Incredible India. U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, marking a 4-day India visit, participated in the Indo-U.S. Commercial Dialogue and CEO Forum. Her Indian counterpart, Piyush Goyal, said that the supply chains and semiconductors were on the agenda of the bilateral talks with Gina Raimondo. Also, the U.S. minister took time out to celebrate Holi at the home of Defence Minister Rajnath Singh in the company of other union ministers and dignitaries. Let's take a look at this report.
U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo participated in Holi festivities as she was hosted by Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh at his residence in New Delhi on Wednesday. The U.S. Commerce Secretary Raimondo and India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh were seen dancing and beating drums as they smeared each other with colours during the celebrations. For U.S. Commerce Secretary, it was a very special moment to be part of the Holi celebrations in India.
Happy Holi to everyone. It's a great honor for me to be here. I want to thank the minister for hosting me. And this is my first time, and I'm very excited to be part of it.
For Rajnath Singh, the festival symbolizes the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or the whole world is one family.
Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam का संदेश देना चाहेंगे, the whole world is family. इस concept को स्वीकार करके ही सारी दुनिया को एक साथ मिलजुल कर काम करना चाहिए.
The program was also attended by other union ministers and leaders at Rajnath Singh's residence. Among others who attended the function included Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, Union Law Minister Kiren Rijiju, Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs and Information and Broadcasting Anurag Thakur, among others. During her 4-day visit to India, Raimondo will participate in the Indo-US Commercial Dialogue and CEO Forum, which will be held on March 10, 2023. Piyush Goyal said that supply chains and semiconductors will be on the agenda of his bilateral talks with Gina Raimondo.
Well, the United States and India are natural allies. We have lots of good partnerships that we are creating, coalitions that we are creating. The agenda is full of possibilities, and we are working together for a safe, secure Indo-Pacific. We are working together to secure resilient supply chains. We are working together to ensure critical minerals and semiconductors are available for the countries who are trusted partners of each other. The United States and India are strategic allies. Our defense, military, technology, trade, in every sphere of activity. We are expanding our relationships as do two friends, two trusted partners.
Ahead of a visit, the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, in a statement had said that through the CEO Forum, the Commercial Dialogue and IPEF, we are making excellent progress in bringing our countries closer together by creating new markets for trade, expanding those that already exist, and reinforcing our shared commitment to democracy. Her trip comes on the heels of last month's special negotiating round for the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework in New Delhi, which was attended by senior U.S. Department of Commerce officials. With inputs from Nandita Dagar, DD India.
The visiting Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese also witnessed colourful Holi celebrations at Raj Bhavan in Gandhinagar, hosted by Governor of Gujarat, Acharya Devvrat. The folk dance performances, like the Rathwa dance of Madhya Pradesh by the Rathwa community, were also presented on the occasion. The delegation with Prime Minister Albanese also witnessed the festivities and witnessed the folk dance of Rajasthan, Krishna Gopi Ras of Gujarat and the Barsani Ki Holi of Uttar Pradesh. Prime Minister Albanese was also spotted capturing the performances on his phone and playing Holi with Australian High Commissioner to India, Barry O'Farrell, and Gujarat Chief Minister Bhupendra Patel. Alright, so that was a gist of all the events that were marked as special during the week. Till we meet next, take good care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
मिठाई तो हमारे जमाने में होती थी।
हाँ तो जाइए ना अपने जमाने में।
रोमांस तो हमारे जमाने में होता था।
पेमेंट भी उसी जमाने का है। अरे भैया डिजिटल पेमेंट करना सीखिए नए जमाने में। इजी, सेफ एंड फास्ट है। हमने तो इनको डिजिटल पेमेंट करना सिखा दिया। आपने? ये सेल्फी लेते हैं, ये हमारे जमाने का है। आरबीआई कहता है कि
डिजिटल पेमेंट अपनाओ,
औरों को भी सिखाओ।
है ना, इसका सब प्रॉपर चलता है।
कल उसके बैंक अकाउंट में 15,000 रुपए का फ्रॉड हुआ है, पता है?
इसको तो कोई टेंशन ही नहीं होती है, देखना।
टेंशन क्यों? मेरी कोई गलती नहीं थी। फिर भी फ्रॉड होने पर मैंने तुरंत बैंक को इन्फॉर्म कर दिया। आरबीआई कहता है अगर आपके अकाउंट से किसी ने धोखे से पैसे निकाले हैं तो बैंक को जल्द से जल्द इन्फॉर्म कीजिए। 3 दिन के अंदर इन्फॉर्म किया तो कोई नुकसान नहीं होगा। जितना लेट करोगे उतना ज्यादा नुकसान। और सुन, सब चलता नहीं है, प्रॉपर चलाना पड़ता है। आरबीआई कहता है जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
What happened in the relationships that I had that were so written about and so scandalized so many people. What happened in those things, what happened in my journey from Bollywood to Europe to Hollywood, all that had to be told. I said, if not now, when? If not me, who?
Namaskar and welcome back to Media Scan, your weekend dose of headlines, controversies and perspectives. Viewers, all through this week and the previous one, Rahul Gandhi's utterances at Cambridge and other events in London formed not only the text of headlines but created a lot of reaction, lot of controversies back here in the country. Like earlier, he repeated that democracy was being threatened in the country and appealed to people among the Britishers that they must take note of it for the global public good. He laid the charge that opposition members, including him, were not being allowed to speak their minds here and said institutions were being captured by the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, equating the RSS with the Muslim Brotherhood. All these reactions, all his comments were the text and the source of many controversies in the country in the past few days. We will try to take up some of them one by one here with our special guests. And I have here with me Ashok Sajjanhar, well-known diplomat, author. You have heard him on Media Scan on earlier occasions. Great to have you, Mr. Sajjanhar. Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar. Thank you. Thank you.
Also with me, Daniel Francis. He is a political analyst. You have heard him on various television platforms, and a keen Congress watcher, a keen person who has been following the politics, the developments in the UPA bloc. Welcome back, Daniel. Also with me, Aarti Tikku. You know her as a very strong social media voice. She is a senior journalist, the founder of the new digital platform, The New Indian, and our old guest on the Media Scan. Welcome back, Aarti Tikku.
Thanks, Smita.
And if I can come to Daniel Francis first. Daniel, Mr. Gandhi has been telling his hosts and organizers in Britain that the Indian democracy is at a crossroads. It is being threatened by the powers here, and for the sake of the global public good, They must take note of it, and if not do something, they should at least be concerned about it. On the other hand, the BJP, the government, and people generally in the country are saying, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, who has not been greatly received by the electorate in the country here, is trying to seek foreign intervention to further his political interests. What do you make of it?
I think, Rahul Gandhi has the full right to raise any kind of issue which he feels close to his heart or he feels that it's important for the country. But he should choose his platforms more carefully. There is already a sentiment that the international press and some developed countries are having, that opinion has been building around India. That democracy is under threat, institutions are under threat, and a lot of it is also propaganda. But really, on one hand, is that when you go abroad and speak about these issues, to speak about these issues is right. It is his right to speak about it, but to seek foreign intervention to deal with our domestic matters is something that he has done politically, not a very wise thing to do. Secondly is that, particularly at a time when the world is, branding India as undemocratic and having a very strong and undemocratic leader at the helm of affairs. And on the other hand, the same party and the same prime minister is reaching new heights of popularity and, increasing its mass base. We have seen just recently how in the Northeast, the BJP had a triumphant victory. And there's no doubt that what the results in 2024 would be. Now,
so do you think, Daniel, do you think by saying what he did, there are anti-India forces abroad, who are trying to malign our democracy? Do you think he may have willy-nilly given them ammunition to attack India more?
Absolutely. For a leader who comes from a party that is ruled the country for 65 years, he needs to be a little careful. He's done like a little Kejriwal thing by, inviting the attention of the country that he's speaking in, whether it is England or America or developed European nations. They have their own track records of dealing with democracies. Democracies and strong leaders have a strange relationship in all countries, and we have it here in India as well. And I'll tell you one thing, the most important threat to India's democracy is the declining fortunes of the opposition. The opposition is not able to put its act in place, give a formidable challenge. Checks and balances cannot be done without a strong and credible opposition.
Right. So I think that's a very interesting point, that you have raised, that the real challenge to Indian democracy might not be from the government, but from, what is the status of the opposition today? Because every strong democracy needs a vibrant, a robust opposition. Correct. And if I may bring in Aarti Tikku here, Aarti, has Rahul Gandhi given ammunition to anti-India forces to denigrate our democracy as is being charged by the BJP and people in the government? And what about his allegation that he is not allowed to speak and other people like him cannot speak fearlessly here in the country? Therefore, he needs to raise his points on a foreign soil.
Well, Smita, to begin with, Rahul Gandhi unfortunately is stigmatizing the legacy of his grandmother, of his great-grandfather. We're talking about Indira Gandhi, who stood up against Nixon and Kissinger. We're also talking about Jawaharlal Nehru, who stood up against the British and, showed them their place. They are, in fact, Nehru, along with Gandhi, Patel, and a lot of other Indian leaders stood up against the British and showed them the door. And this man, unfortunately, is on his knees and is begging before the same colonial powers who oppressed us, who persecuted us, who harassed us and extracted every single ounce of our resources for almost 200 years. It's a shame. It's a shame that Rahul Gandhi does not know his legacy, his own legacy, let alone the country's legacy, let alone this nation's greatness in the struggle, that hundreds and thousands of people were engaged in during the freedom struggle of India. Now, having said that, Rahul Gandhi today, it seems, is part of the same cabal, the same lobby, which is constantly denigrating India only because they have a visceral hatred for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Narendra Modi is somebody who has risen from the ground, a mass leader who does not have the kind of privileged background that the Gandhis have, that Rahul Gandhi has, He is a common man, and common man's leadership clearly is neither acceptable to Rahul Gandhi nor acceptable to the the former colonizers, that is the United Kingdom. They do not like Prime Minister Modi, and their interests sort of converge because Prime Minister Modi is talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat. He's talking about inclusiveness. He's talking about all the issues that the Congress should have been raising, or the Congress should have been dealing with when they were in power. Since the Congress failed at all those issues, we saw massive poverty till 1990. It's only after the economic liberalization India has taken a different course of progress and advancement. Now, with all those failures and flaws in its, unfortunately, Rahul Gandhi doesn't have much to show off. In fact,
so
since Sonia Gandhi
let me bring in
Ashok
Sajjanhar here, because you have raised some very pertinent points by, putting things in the background. Ashok Sajjanhar, Aarti believes that, it is a failed politician who has reneged on the legacy of the leaders who came from his own family, and really denigrated India's fight against the British by going down on his knees seeking their intervention. First question, sir, do you think his comments amount to seeking intervention, or is this just the concern of a senior politician? Also, how do you think it puts India in what kind of a light when a senior politician goes on a foreign soil and starts raising issues which are happening here, particularly in terms of democracy and institutions?
Yeah, thank you very much, Smita. Thank you for having me on your show. So 2 questions, and both of them are very, very important. And, I've heard Rahul Gandhi's statement at different meetings in the United Kingdom, both now and earlier, but we are discussing about the comments that he has made now. So let me limit myself to these comments.
Yes.
Definitely, when he says that I am shocked that the so-called defenders of democracy, that is the United States and countries in Europe, they have done nothing about it. And he calls Indian democracy as a public global good. What does it mean? First, when he is shocked, that means he would really want these countries to intervene in whatever is happening in India. So I think the charge that is being made against Mr. Rahul Gandhi, that he's trying to seek external intervention, I think that is not far off the mark at all. I think that is quite accurate. And secondly, when he talks about this public global good, what does it mean? That Indian democracy is out there for everyone to sort of, interfere with, or to make whatever interventions they want to. I think we need to realize that democracy really is for the genius of all countries, that it is, it is not one size fits all as far as democracy is concerned. Right. The democracy in the United Kingdom, in France, in the United States is very different from the democracy in India. The final point on this particular issue, I will say, is that Indian democracy is not only robust and flourishing, but it is yielding the desired results, because it's not only in terms of elections that you are able to have a very smooth transfer of power from one party to the other without any significant charges of corruption or malfeasance. Not at all, I think, and it has been proved beyond doubt that our systems are very robust and functioning very well. In addition to those elections, we are also able to deliver, what democracy is supposed to do, provide a better standard of living, security, prosperity, stability, peace to people in our country. We've been able to do that. Now, the second question that you had posed, is it harmful as far as the country is concerned? I definitely think so. You see, because let me make one point. People in India are aware of the sort of statements that Mr. Rahul Gandhi makes. That, many of them are quite are not at all accurate. I don't want to use terms like lies and all that. But, they are baseless, many of the statements that he makes. But people who are outside, they don't realize this, they don't know this. And they think that it is a senior member of a very important political party, so he must have considerable credibility. People in India realize that his credibility is very low.
Yes, and incidentally, sir, even the Chief Election Commissioner, had to go and raise concern about the fact that, as you said, not one size fits all. So therefore, these surveys and rating agencies which try to, classify our democracy in a particular way, they really need to look at the total picture. But allow me to bring in Daniel Francis back into the discussion once. Daniel, as I was just asking, one very serious charge that Mr. Gandhi laid right in the beginning of his trip was that senior opposition leaders like him are not allowed to speak their mind here in the country. Now, that is a really serious charge to make. But there have been data in the public domain trying to show that Mr. Rahul Gandhi, who is first and foremost a parliamentarian before anything else, has never really utilized this opportunity to raise concerns of his constituency or other national issues, and his performance as a parliamentarian remains much more tardy than anybody else. How do you look at this charge? And also, do you think after this entire exercise of the Bharat Jodo Yatra, there is any ground to the allegation that he is unable to speak his mind here?
I think that it's an unnecessary charge. Things are not so bad for the opposition as Rahul Gandhi tries to make it look. Okay, and definitely things may not be as good as he wants them to be. But they are not as bad as they did. We are not Russia. We are not China. We are not, Turkey, where leaders have an absolute power over the parliament, over the system, and any dissenting voice is just put away, sent to jail, disappears, and things like that. Things are in India's the opposition has an interesting relationship with the government. But there are still people who are winning elections that are not of the BJP. You saw that Arvind Kejriwal comes up in Delhi. We see states in the south who are fighting the BJP and winning elections.
Just a cross question here. Daniel, how much of his utterances do you think are a fallout of the reason that the Congress is not really able to do well electorally?
No, Congress has not been able to do well into the election is that because they do not have, first of all, I think they are not able to find the proper gaps on taking down this government, the proper gap. I don't know whether this government has left a gap for them to catch, but they can't find a gap in this government to pull them down in this. Second thing is that their performance, Rahul Gandhi, in a mature democracy, when a leader is rejected by his own constituency, okay, or has time and again proved to be ineffective and not been able to win election, that leader should go. This is not an insult to him. I'm just saying that, like for example, we saw what happened in the Labour Party in UK. David and Ed Miliband. People come and go. Once they are not able to do this, then new leadership really comes up. So the problem with the Congress, the people are still voting for the Congress. There's a large number of people. In terms of vote share, it is the second largest party in the country.
Yes.
It can do very well if it wants to do very well. BJP cannot be blamed for not their revival. They are stumbling block to their own revival. They can't go to the people with it. And Rahul Gandhi's appeal is very limited. His ideas are very skewed. Now, at a time when people have inflation, people have joblessness, people have other issues in the country, you talk about threat to democracy, and as if the threat is as bad as what threat to democracy was in 1975, when Indira Gandhi had to declare this. People know a lot of things, and at some level, what politicians are going through in terms of they think there is persecution. People, general public in India is not feeling that persecuted. People are going about doing their work, and they are finding their own peace. and they know their governments very well. They can perceive them very well. He needs to find
yes, so if I can come to Aarti here, as you said, Mr. Gandhi is trying to, create a gloomy picture, a doomsday kind of a situation. But certainly the people in the country are not thinking likewise. And Aarti, you will be happy to know that from the data we have at our disposal, whether it is access to something as basic as toilets, or coverage of electric connections, or giving houses to the poor at nominal charges, or there are issues like LPG connections. For a very, very long time, for more than 6 decades, the Congress, particularly people from Mr. Rahul Gandhi's own family, were ruling the country, and they could not ensure something as basic as access to a toilet to the women of the country, something which is so primary to the dignity of the women folk. But if we look at the data of the country, if democracy is about reaching the fruits of democracy, the fruits of power to the last man standing in the queue, then what has been done after Narendra Modi took charge certainly does not give any credence to Mr. Rahul Gandhi's charge that democracy is threatened. And yet, he has raised the issues of tribals and minorities and women. If we do not go very far, we just look at the recent Northeast elections. 2 of the 3 states are dominated completely by minorities. They are not Hindu majority states. And the 3rd state, Tripura, has a very sizable tribal majority. So how do you think these allegations will stick in the mind of the people, whether it is in India or on a foreign soil?
Well, Smita, ironically, Rahul Gandhi's, as usual, turning out to be the best champion of Narendra Modi's success and achievement and accomplishment in India. He's his best political campaigner in a way, because when he denies the kind of work Prime Minister Modi has done, and I'm a witness to it because I travel across the hinterland in India. I have covered elections. I have been to villages, for example, even in Amethi, where until Prime Minister Modi came to power, there were no toilets and there was no housing for Muslims. But yes, I have covered neighborhoods in Amethi and in several other parts of Uttar Pradesh where Congress used to be in power for a very long time. And it's only in the last 10 years, Muslim neighborhoods, Muslim community members now have toilets, they have housing, and many of the Muslim women actually are in favor of Modi government's policies, especially Ujjwala scheme, which allowed gas subsidy to poor women. Now, this is happening across the aisle. It is happening irrespective of religion, caste, color, creed. And this is being recognized by poor people. If you look at the 2019 electoral data, you will know that the appeal of Prime Minister Modi is enormously, unprecedentedly huge in rural India because of these schemes, because of the benefits.
If I may add here, in 2018, and we have the data here, you will find it on your screens. In 2018, Mr. Gandhi made similar trips abroad to Singapore, to Malaysia, to Bahrain, and to the Western countries, where he leveled very similar charges for what he is saying now in his London trip. And the 2019 results, less than 1 year after those visits, showed a completely different picture.
Absolutely. 2019, I know that some of the newsrooms, especially English mainstream media, they were claiming that Prime Minister Modi was not going to get a huge mandate. It will be a coalition government and poor are very unhappy. But I can say it with certainty of a reporter who believes in legwork and who believes in the ground level reporting. Yes. I can tell you with certainty that people in this country, especially the poor in this country, look at Prime Minister Modi as a messiah, as somebody who come as a savior and who really feels for the poor, because they see Prime Minister Modi as one among them. He is not a privileged man. He does not come from privileged background. He speaks their language. He has the pulse of this nation. And
right,
that's
and
what
it is the people
borders...
finally in our country, Aarti, who will have to decide who comes back to power or who rules at the center and the states. And programs abroad can have an impact in creating a narrative, but they may not influence the voters exactly. But I have one very important question left to ask Mr. Ashok Sajjanhar here. Sir, Aarti has given a very lucid picture of what is happening at the grassroots in our country. But to speak of foreign affairs, in his London trip and in Cambridge, Mr. Rahul Gandhi has pointed at India's policy towards China. At the same time, he mentioned in the light of the Pulwama attack, India's attitude towards Pakistan. He said it was done by a local person, the Pulwama attack. Whereas on the question of China, he clearly lambasted the foreign minister, External Affairs Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, and said that India was not, showing the courage to stand up to China. Do you think that charge really holds ground? And is it good to praise and admire the might of a foreign country in a third country and lambast our own government, which has been trying to meet the China challenge, which I'm sure you know better?
I think Mr. Rahul Gandhi's statement about, Dr. Jaishankar not knowing or not appreciating the threat of China, I think this is preposterous, to put it mildly. It is absolutely, it doesn't stand ground. Dr. Jaishankar has been the foreign secretary. He's been our ambassador to China. He's been our ambassador to the United States. So, meaning all these permutations and combinations are very well known to him. The second part is, after Galwan happened in June of 2020, let's face it, it was Prime Minister Modi who went to the border, who went to Ladakh, and who challenged the expansionist policies of China. It is not only Smita saying in words that, you are, what you are doing against a particular adversary or a hostile power. What you need to do is you need to speak with your actions. And Prime Minister Modi has spoken with actions. I don't think China would have expected, the COVID-19 pandemic had just then started, you would recall. March of 2020, we had started our lockdown. It started with 3 weeks and it continued. So I don't think China would have anticipated that India would be able to withstand the, the accumulation of 50,000 troops and getting all the armory and equipment and aircrafts on the line of actual control. But India surprised them. India surprised China as it had surprised it in Doklam in 2017 when there was a eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation for 73 days, Smita. So I think Prime Minister Modi has acted, where it is, and very strongly. And we have, while China has continued to say that we need to put our border issue on the proper place. You would remember even when Xinjiang Gang, the Chinese foreign minister, came to India now for the G20, he said we need to continue our business as usual. But obviously, India has, stated very categorically.
Right. So certainly, I mean, if we look at the chain of events, sir, I believe what you are trying to say is that if we look at the chain of events in the past few years, particularly just before Galvan and post Galvan, these charges certainly do not stick. So I'm afraid I shall have to cut short this conversation here because I've completely run out of time. But thank you so much, Mr. Ashok Sajjanhar and Daniel, for joining us at such a short notice. You have been very lucid in explaining the questions raised here. And Aarti Tikku, always gracious to join us on our show. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Viewers, if we look at what our guests have just explained to us, it is very clear that whether we are speaking of issues related to domestic politics or India's relations with our neighbors such as China and Pakistan, Mr. Rahul Gandhi may have really overstepped in raising questions about the government of India, and certainly there is anger about the fact that even if he had to raise these issues, should he have not raised them in India and try to get answers from the government rather than seeking intervention on a foreign soil? We are not sure this issue is going to end on this weekend. So let's wait for what happens in the coming week. See you again next weekend. That's all from Media Scan for this evening. Namaskar.
50,000 एडवांस। पर इतना कैश तो हम नहीं लाए।
और आज बैंक भी बंद है।
इलाज है डिजिटल पेमेंट का आसान सा डोज। लेकिन अरे घबराइए मत, सावधानी के साथ करेंगे तो कोई साइड इफेक्ट भी नहीं होगा। फोन लाइए मुझे, यहाँ फोन लगाइए। डिजिटल पेमेंट से लेन देन हो सकता है, आसान, सुरक्षित और तेज। मैंने तो इन्हें डिजिटल पेमेंट सिखा दिया है, आपने? क्योंकि आरबीआई कहता है कि
डिजिटल पेमेंट अपनाओ,
औरों को भी सिखाओ।
चैंपियन के साथ सेल्फी लेंगे। आइडिया, यही करते हैं पार्टी। पिज्जा पार्टी। ये चल अपना कार्ड और पिन दे।
मेरे कार्ड की डिटेल्स मैं खुद ही डालूंगी। आरबीआई कहता है अपना पिन, ओटीपी, सीवीवी या इंटरनेट बैंकिंग पासवर्ड किसी के साथ शेयर ना करें। ऑनलाइन बैंकिंग सिर्फ अपने कंप्यूटर, मोबाइल और सिक्योर नेटवर्क से करें।
बाय गर्ल्स, कहाँ जा रही है? सुना नहीं, नो शेयरिंग।
आरबीआई कहता है जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
As the day unfolds and news and events take shape, we get you complete coverage of every news breaking in, tracking new developments as they happen. Midday Prime English, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. on DD India.
Namaste and welcome to Indian Diplomacy, a show about India's role in the world, how India is shaping the emerging world order, India's relations with major countries, and also India's outlook on the world, India's foreign relations, and also its impact on the world. Normally, viewers, Indian Diplomacy, we look at one country and India's bilateral relationship with it, all the aspects and angles. But this time, it's a special episode. We are looking at India's global cultural diplomacy. Cultural diplomacy is a term closely associated with the idea of soft power and the notion that a country can be attractive inherently by virtue of its qualities, not because of its economic might or its military prowess, but something deeper, which is the essence of the soul of that country. India's cultural diplomacy is what we are covering in this episode of Indian Diplomacy. And to take us through this journey, I am really privileged to introduce to you our studio guest, none other than Dr. Vinay Sahasrabudhe. He is President of Indian Council for Cultural Relations and member of the Rajya Sabha, the upper house of India's parliament, and the ICCR, which he represents, is the official arm of the Indian government to promote Indian culture overseas and to make the whole world love, admire and respect India more. So Vinayji, it's really an honor that you have joined me today.
Thank you very much.
Vinayji, when we talk about Indian cultural diplomacy, Indian culture, one of the thoughts that comes to mind is that it's a civilizational state. People say that it's not a nation state, it's not like a modern nation state, it's the India that we have since 1947's independence is a reflection of thousands of years of heritage, very rich and glorious heritage and civilizational greatness. And your thoughts, Vinayji, on the essence of Indian culture and why it is so admired globally. Why do you think, what is it that is the USP of Indian culture that has universal values and appeal around the world?
Well, it reminds me of what Atalji had once said, that India is just not a land mass. It is not just a piece of land for that matter. But India is a living embodiment of what you rightly described, certain civilizational values, if I may describe it that way. And therefore, the idea of India, which makes India what India is today. And if I just reflect upon that idea of India or the major dimensions of that idea of India, at least as a student of international relations, if I may comment, there are 5 major dimensions. Firstly, it starts with our what I call as spiritual democracy, because we call it ekam sat vipra bahuda vadanti, and we never kind of allowed any kind of monopoly of a particular way of worship, something which is very, very important, because world over, today they are talking about multiculturalism and so on and so forth, but it is there in our blood.
For thousands of years.
Yeah, nobody need to teach us. Then our idea of Antyodaya, when the world is still struggling with the binary of left or right, capitalism or socialism, we have our own way found out, and which is Antyodaya, which is a Gandhian concept, which is a concept propounded by Pandit Deen Upadhyay, where we say that the most deprived should be considered as the most deserved when you distribute the fruits of development, for that matter. So this is the second important feature. The third important feature is our relationship with Mother Nature. Today, globally, they are discussing about climate change and the impact of it and sustainability and so on and so forth. We knew it. Every morning today, there are several families where they start their day by kind of seeking forgiveness from Mother Earth. Padas parsham kshamaswame, as what we call. So this is another feature. Third feature is our unity and diversity, or rather diversity and unity. Multiple languages, multiple lifestyles, multiple culinary and cuisine traditions stay together under one roof without quarreling, without kind of leg pulling.
Coexistence.
Coexistence, something very, very important. And the fifth and more important feature is we look at world as one family. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And therefore, this is something so very essential aspect of India's world view, for that matter, or the philosophical fundamentals of India, and therefore the idea of India. That sets us apart from other nations in the Committee of Nations.
Very well said. And Vinayji, the continuity of our civilization, I mean, we are talking about millennia, and it's continuously inhabited and with a core essence that goes back to the Vedic period. That is something that fascinates a lot of people around the world. As president of ICCR, you have engaged with so many countries around the world, and you see there's this category of what we call Indophiles around the world, people who love India and who think of India with great respect and reverence, especially because of its glorious past. So that aspect, Vinayji, how important is that as we go forward, because we are in the 21st century, but harking back to past golden eras is very important, because that's how people realize that this civilizational state is like a living organism for over 3,000 years.
See, the way the world and the global community are struggling with several challenges, including the challenge to our family system, there are social challenges, there are challenges to identity, and so on and so forth. I think people have to realize, have to understand the idea of India, which, as I said, comprises of these 5 civilizational values, and we are a civilizational society, no doubt about it. When that poet said, "Kya baat hai ki hasti mitati nahi hamari," it is this hasti. Yeah. It is because of these 5 principal kind of pillars on which our civilization has sustained, and not just sustained, but grown over the millennia, for that matter. But the problem here is that while India is very, very attractive, India is perhaps one of those few countries wherein we are enjoying kind of a fund of goodwill in every nook and corner of the globe. Wherever you go, save for a couple of countries in our neighborhood, everywhere India is loved, India is respected. And therefore, this love, this goodwill, this respect is important.
And it's because we are providing solutions to contemporary problems.
But more important is the understanding about India. If you love somebody, it doesn't mean that you understand him or her. And therefore, we have to create that understanding about the idea of India, about Indian society, about our Indian culture. Once we do that, we can really command the soft power, which in a way we are already there. We already have.
Absolutely. Now, viewers, talking of soft power, The greatest exponent of soft power in contemporary times is none other than India's Prime Minister, Narendra Modi ji. He has actually explained and elucidated this concept of soft power and made it integral to India's foreign policy. Let's listen in to what he had to say a few years ago about India's cultural heritage and soft power. Let's have a look.
वैश्विक संबंध में धीरे धीरे सॉफ्ट पावर मुख्य धारा बन गया है और सॉफ्ट पावर के द्वारा ही वैश्विक संबंधों को ऊर्जा मिलती है, ताकत मिलती है। भारत ने भी अपने वैश्विक संबंधों को बनाने के डिप्लोमेटिक जो कुछ भी चैनल्स है उसके सिवाय जो हमें विरासत में मिली हुई शक्ति है उसका भी भरपूर उपयोग करना चाहिए। और ये संबंध बहुत लंबे अरसे तक परिणामकारी होते हैं। विश्व में जहां जहां भगवान बुद्ध की प्रेजेंस है, सामूहिक रूप से वे देश हमसे जुड़े रहे तो हमारी कितनी बड़ी ताकत बन सकती है। विश्व में जहां जहां राम और रामायण से संपर्क रहा है, जो लोग गर्व करते हैं, उसी एक तंतु के साथ उसको जोड़ करके आज उसको अगर संबंधों को विकसित किया जाए तो संबंध अपनेपन वाले बन जाते हैं और वो डिप्लोमेटिक रिलेशन से भी एक अधिक ताकतवर बन जाते हैं, एक नेक्स्ट लेवल उसका प्राप्त होता है। और उस अर्थ में ये प्रयास वैश्विक संबंधों को अधिक और गहरे करने के लिए, वैश्विक संबंधों को और अधिक व्यापक करने के लिए और वैश्विक संबंधों में एक अपनेपन के कमिटमेंट के एलिमेंट को जोड़ने के लिए बहुत ही उपकारक होंगे, ऐसा मैं मानता हूं। और इसको हमें अलग अलग तरीके से बढ़ाना भी चाहिए। ये एक जो पहलू है उसमें भारत की एक विशिष्ट शक्ति है, उसकी भी दुनिया को पहचान होती है कि हमारे पास विश्व को देने के लिए क्या कुछ नहीं है।
There's so much that India has to give to the world, and that's what our Prime Minister is saying. Vinay ji, he has identified long ago this unique attribute, and earlier eras we had been shy about expressing ourselves, our cultural identity in the world. But now in the Modi era we managed to do that, and that's probably a reason why India comes across as more authentic now. Because we have gone back to our roots. So your thoughts on how we have marshaled, Prime Minister was saying that we should use all our cultural energies and rich heritage to make a mark on the world. So how effective have we been, you think, in the last few years? And what all have we been doing, especially under ICCI?
Yeah. I think Prime Minister has been providing us the guidance, direction and telling kind of preparing a roadmap in a way as to how do we move ahead in the direction of strengthening our soft power. I'll give you one example. In 2014, Mr. Modi took over, and thereafter the ICCI started conducting an annual Ramayana festival. And for that Ramayana festival, we invite troops from various countries where Ramayana is a part of their traditions. Myanmar sends the troop, Thailand, Sri Lanka, then Indonesia, Malaysia, several countries send the troops. Japan, even Taiwan at times. So these things kept on happening. Sometime 3 years back or so, our office was struggling with the decision whether to send an invite to Brunei. Because they were a little apprehensive, because Brunei is a 100% Islamic country, and whether they would be happy to send a Ramayana troop or not. We decided that let us send an invite. If they are desirous, they will send, otherwise they won't send. It's not mandatory. But much to our surprise and much to our pleasure, they sent a group, and the troop, Ramayana troop, performed very well, exceedingly well. And when over a cup of tea, some of our officials asked them, shared with them that we were a little hesitant whether you will come or not. We had some doubts about it. The person, the artist who had come from Brunei, told our officials that you are making a mistake. We have changed our religion, but our culture is the same. So that is the strength of the influence of Indian culture, whether it is Ramayana, Mahabharata, whether it is Ayurveda or yoga. Let us take the example of yoga. Now, of course, after having instituted 21st June as the International Yoga Day, the development of yoga is phenomenal. And every other country is now wanting the traditional knowledge that India, in a way, has developed. And therefore, all these dimensions of our soft power, as rightly explained and emphasized by the Prime Minister, we need to further cultivate. India's culinary and cuisine traditions.
Our traditional medicine.
Yeah, traditional medicine.
Ayurveda is now globally recognized as an alternative to the Western.
Precisely. And therefore, all these things, in fact, this year, when we will have our International Yoga Sciences Conference on Yogic Sciences, which we have been organizing for last 4 years, it's going to happen in Toronto, in Canada. And the theme is the role of yoga in combating the challenge of pandemic.
With mental health being such a big global problem,
certainly.
We have the solutions. Prime Minister has always been saying that, that be it extremism, terrorism, climate change.
And I mean, it is endless. A couple of years back, again inspired by the Prime Minister, we organized a webinar. It was Corona all around, so actual physical seminar simply was not possible. So we had a webinar, and the theme of the webinar was weaving relations through textile traditions. Because textile is something which has woven the texture of our humanity and the civilizational societies world over. And therefore, we had some 15 countries representing in that webinar. The textile minister of Bangladesh was there. Our Prime Minister also gave through video his message. And the First Lady of Korea was there. The Queen of Bhutan was there. So everybody wanted that we have to take together our textile traditions and enrich them further.
So, virtually weaving a network of thick relationships based on cultural similarities and affinities going back a long time. Vinayji, also Indian music, dance, cinema, I mean, these are essential ingredients, especially our visual and performing arts. And in these fields also, Indian artists have been making waves around the world, and they're very popular. You go to Africa, go to the Middle East, go to many parts of Asia. I mean, Bollywood is #1. It's even ahead of Western movies or any other peer. So that aspect of contemporary art forms, which are of course linked to our long history with drama and theater and performance, how well are we being able to project these? I mean, some people say that we have these great talents, but they have not yet been fully projected, and we need to do a lot more to get the word out and spread the message about our visual and performing arts.
Yeah, I mean, sky is the limit, and there are takers practically everywhere. Recently, I had a chance of visiting Switzerland, and I came across a Swiss person who is for last 25 years conducting a Sarod class tutorial there in Switzerland, and he has thousands of students. Similarly, some Indian ladies who have made Switzerland their home, they are teaching Bharatanatyam and Kathak there for last 35 years. Now we need to recognize them. In fact, let me tell you that ICCR has now devised a program which is called as Pratibha Sangam. And in every other country, we have chosen 7 genres, classical and vocal and instrumental music, from the Hindustani tradition and the Carnatic tradition as well, and 3 styles of Indian classical dance, which is Bharatanatyam, Kathak and Odissi. And in all these traditions, those who have excelled, we will be judging their performances below the age of 40, and we will be recognizing them. And then there will be a further round of recognizing the talents in a particular region. And all those who excel in a particular region, let's say Southeast Asia, let's say Europe or Latin America, we will have those people visiting India as a part of Azadi Ka Amrut Mahotsav. So this will be a real Pratibha Sangam.
Confluence of talents across the world. with India as the center. I mean, that's how we can become a big cultural center for the world. Vinayji, the diaspora, our diaspora is now more than 30 million strong worldwide, and they have also been big cultural ambassadors. You have engaged with a lot of them. You have tried to connect them to Mother India and to spread the message about our universal cultural values. How important is the diaspora, and your thoughts on this aspect?
Well, I have realized it that the diaspora in fact shapes the idea of India in a more prominent way than any other person. Because when they conduct themselves on a foreign soil, the way they behave, the way they come across, the way they get along with the local people, the way they maintain or rather preserve their identity as an Indian, that ultimately shapes the idea of India in the minds of the people where they are staying. And therefore, their role is extremely important. In fact, in a way, they are our cultural ambassadors. And we keep on appealing all the diaspora. In fact, whenever we require our teachers, yoga teacher or maybe dance teachers, we are now drawing them from the local NRI community over there. Because hundreds of people are there who still, after having made a foreign country their place of their home, so even then they continue with the learning and the research or study of any dance tradition or music or whatever it is. And we need to recognize them. We are trying to rope them in our efforts at various centers. So that is also going on. And beyond doubt, NRI, now of course there is a new generation of such people of Indian origin who have taken birth in a different country.
Second, third generation. Yeah. So, viewers, the point is that India in the past had not been able to harness its diaspora well. Under Modi administration, what India has done is brought all these elements together and has given them a kind of a coherent structure and a mission. The mission is, of course, to promote the greatness of India and to also for them to feel fulfilled, because they are being recognized, as Vinayji is saying. In the past, they were just abandoned. So now we feel like they are part of this great cultural journey, and that's what we are witnessing around the world, the vibrant Indian diaspora. Talking of soft power, one of the aspects of soft power is also foreign policy and the conduct of foreign policy. That is also a source of soft power. So how is culture, Indian culture, influencing India's foreign policy and foreign relations and strategy around the world? I want you to hear our Prime Minister on this as well, and then we come back to Vinayji.
भगवान बुद्ध का एक एक वचन, एक एक उपदेश मानवता की सेवा में भारत की प्रतिबद्धता को मजबूत करता है। बुद्ध भारत के बोध और भारत के आत्मबोध दोनों का प्रतीक है। इसी आत्मबोध के साथ भारत निरंतर पूरी मानवता के लिए, पूरे विश्व के हित में काम कर रहा है और करता रहेगा। भारत की प्रगति हमेशा विश्व की प्रगति में सहायक होगी। साथियों, हमारी सफलता के पैमाने और लक्ष्य दोनों समय के साथ बदलते रहते हैं, लेकिन जो बात हमें हमेशा ध्यान रखनी है वो ये कि हमारा काम निरंतर सेवा भाव से ही होना चाहिए। जब दूसरे के लिए करुणा हो, संवेदना हो और सेवा का भाव हो, तो ये भावनाएं हमें इतना मजबूत कर देती हैं कि बड़ी से बड़ी चुनौती से आप पार पा सकते हैं। सुप्पबुद्धम पबुज्जन्ति सदा गोतम सावका। यानी जो दिन रात हर समय मानवता की सेवा में जुटे रहते हैं, वही बुद्ध के सच्चे अनुयायी हैं। यही भाव हमारे जीवन को प्रकाशमान करता रहे, गतिमान करता रहे।
Viewers, Prime Minister of India is saying service to humanity is the foremost purpose of India and India's engagement to the world. In fact, when it comes to rescue diplomacy, when it comes to supporting countries in need, India has never left any stone unturned. Vinayji, our culture, Prime Minister is talking about Buddha, compassion, service to humankind, and clearly that's reflected in the way we have done HADR, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, also supporting countries in need when they are in deep financial crisis. We have done all this, right?
So it is beyond doubt. I mean, what Prime Minister Modi has been saying, in a way he is resonating the voice of the civilizational values that are so very dear to our heart. He was talking about Buddhism, and let me tell you that the ICCR is now going to have annually a conference on Buddhist studies. And also we are going to recognize an institution or an individual who has done exceptional work in promoting Buddhist studies. So this is something which is an important part of our traditional knowledge system in a way. But beyond that also, as what he was very rightly referring to, our contribution with the sense of service, Indian peacekeeping forces internationally are famous for working very diligently, very dutifully, kind of selflessly, even sacrificing for that matter, or rescue operations, as you very rightly pointed out, even in Ukraine-Russia crisis. When people decided to unfurl the flag of India and then move ahead, people allowed them, whether they were Russians or Ukrainians, army men or common people, they made way for Indians, because that is the love and affection that Indians enjoy, and India as a country also enjoy. And therefore, our identity essentially is that of a person who believes that the entire world is his or her family.
A responsible global member of the global community.
True. True.
Vinayji, also people say that, you know, in foreign policy, all that really matters is military and economic might, but like we have discussed, soft power has become important, much more important, and now we've integrated into our foreign policy, and it's quite reflected now. You can see a shift in attitudes, global attitudes, barring some ideologically motivated corners in some parts of the world. The bulk of the societies in other parts of the world have grown to admire and respect India more in recent years. So your thoughts on this?
Certainly there is a change, and that change is happening because many more people are now looking at India with a different vision. And when somebody visits India, he becomes kind of an India lover, and the outlook changes, and there are several examples of it. But beyond all these things, what attracts people about India is that India comes across as a country which perhaps could be, as Yogi Arvind had once predicted, be a part of solutions for the entire global community. Whether it is sustainability, whether it is multiculturalism, whether it is one-upmanship as what we see, mindless competition, arm race, so on and so forth, India perhaps can definitely say that we are here to provide solutions. And with the feeling, with the sense that we are here to serve the humanity. That is something which, as I said, sets India apart from other nations, and that is something very, very important. You were saying about soft power and the influence of it. I would say that the very idea of soft power is something to do with the discovery of India. Why people set out, whether Columbus or whosoever, Vasco da Gama later on.
India,
yeah.
The fabled land.
Why? Because they were wanting to know from where the spices are coming. And spices are a significant ingredient of India's soft power. When the term soft power was not there, India possessed soft power. This is very important.
Yeah.
And soft power today has become important because people have realized that there are limitations to military might or economic prowesses. And therefore, they want to influence the global community with all important values, basically. Few decades back, there was discussion about American values. But Americanization has become kind of so very omnipresent in the world, and therefore many smaller countries are finding themselves in a crisis of identity.
Right.
If you go to Tel Aviv, you realize that you are in a Hebrew America, or if you go to China, you realize that you are in a Mandarin America. But that experience you will never get in Delhi or in Mumbai, because we have continued with our identity, and identity is a critical force, motivational force in the modern day as well. This is what even the sociologists today recognize.
So viewers, authenticity is important, identity is important. State should be able to express itself and reflect its contemporary as well as the past social values and heritage, and that's what India is trying to do. And Dr. Vinay Sahasrabudhe has been very kind and has shared many things with us, and I'm really, really grateful that he's given us time today. Sir, the work that the Indian Council for Cultural Relations under your leadership is doing is very, very valuable, and we hope that ICCR and its mission continues to grow, and that we have extraordinary success, because like you said, the soft power has always existed, but now we are trying to also use it strategically to enhance our prestige and stature in the current international system. Thank you, Vinayji. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Viewers, that's all we have for you in Indian Diplomacy this time. It was a special episode, but I'll be back